Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday to you. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show here, live on the internet, and ready to talk about video games. I'm Jeff Gerstmann, your host for this week's edition of the show, and I'm happy that you're here. Whether you're here live or whether you're here in a general kind of future sense out there listening to the show days, weeks, years later. I hope everything is okay in the future. That'd be nice. It'd be nice if everything was fine in the future. That's just me. That's just me. Just hoping everything's all right out there. Big week for this is kind of like the only, well, you know, unless there's some surprise down the line, this week is the only hardware launch of the year, right? I mean, the PlayStation VR2 is out this week, is out tomorrow, I guess is when people are supposed to start getting their shipments in, and that's there is a certain amount of excitement that comes with that. We'll see. I'm trying to think, like, would there be any other hardware launches? No, right? I mean, there's not going to be. It's not like Sony's going to launch some other slim PlayStation 5. I doubt it. It's not like there's going to be some new Xbox. No, Nintendo's not going to release a new Switch this year. I mean, maybe do we end up? Yeah, is it the year of the Amico? Is this the? Yeah, that's a good point. Is the Amico still on for a 2023 launch? We'll see. Hilarious. Yes, the Amico. Or like, is Apple's gonna ship its VR headset this year? They're supposed to announce it. Well, I guess it's in June or something like that. Will Valve have another VR headset? That's kind of like the specter of VR headsets of the future actually kind of hang a little bit over our PlayStation VR2 discussion just a bit, in terms of like, hey, what's the recommendation on this whole thing, right? It's a really spending time with the PlayStation VR2 has been very strange. It's been a weirdly, I would say, maybe like a melancholy experience. Like there's almost like it feels nostalgic in a weird way about like, oh yeah, there's a new VR headset. Remember when they used to do VR? Remember VR? Like it's got that kind of vibe to it in a weird way, and that doesn't maybe it's not the best situation to be launching into, but it's just it's been a weird ride for virtual reality, obviously. Oh, hey, I got this. We're gonna get into this here. If you want to, you can read. I wrote a full review of the PlayStation VR2 that is up on Patreon. And you can go to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann to get your hands on that. Of course, there are other benefits to signing on up. You can get access to the Discord. You can get access to early episodes of the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame. Game Boys to Men, the podcast that is burning up the charts. It's not on any charts. There's no charts for it to burn up because it's Patreon exclusive. So you can sign up over there, and that's myself and Glenn Rubenstein, who used to write about games back in the 1990s. And we were talking about our experiences growing up and doing a lot of dumb stuff. We haven't even gotten into the part where we were in a band or any, like there's like a dark, the hijinks, I feel like that podcast is about to get a lot weirder over the next 4 episodes or so. Next one up is going to be us talking about the PC and its impact in the early 90s. We've been talking a lot about the launch of the Genesis and the kind of run that Sega went on there in the face of Nintendo. And we've been getting into the multimedia era a little bit, talking about the CDI and the 3DO. And now, we're kind of looping back around in the next episode to talk about the PC. because obviously the PC is a huge part of that weird, dark multimedia story. Just a glut of real garbage. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about the PC and you know what the release of Doom did to video games as a whole. I think is actually probably how that will work out. That's available only on Patreon. Patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann to get access to that. I got another can of this. I got another one of these G Fuels. The folks at G Fuel, because we've been ranking energy drinks for a long time, the folks at G Fuel were like, hey, do you want some flavors that you might not find at your store? And I was like, yes, that is, I am always trying to get my hands on flavors that I have not seen before. And I've got high hopes for this one. I don't know. It's got this dude on it. This is G Fuel Orange Vibe. And it says inspired by, I guess that is inspired by KSI. Is that like a esports? Is it the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? What is that? All right, well, whatever. Orange Vibe. The orange drinks have done quite well on the rankings. So I'm a big fan of a good high quality orange beverage. So I've got high hopes here that this one's gonna do it. But that smells like baby aspirin. That's exactly, we're on the right track here. We are on the right track. Yeah, like an orange cream vibe to it all the way. I've got high hopes. I've got very high hopes. Okay. Let's find out. This is almost really good. Oh. That's a weird ride. That's a really weird ride on this one, where it starts out the sweet orange flavor you're looking for, and then in the middle is a real almost medicine-y, powdery kind of feel. And the chemicals punch through in the middle, and then on the end of it, it kind of gets a little sweet again. It gets a little baby aspirin-y again, but in a good way. Like, these are carbonated, so it's almost like a thing where as I drink it, I'm like, am I supposed to shake these because it tastes like it needs to mix better or something? Like, is it settled? Yeah. This is okay, but it's not. This is all right. I had high hopes. Like I said, the orange flavors have done quite well. Let's get this on the list and move on to talking about the PlayStation VR2. Okay, we've got 75 drinks on the list. And we're going to say this is below the C4 orange slice. It's below the Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time Wumpa Fruit. But it's not. I would drink this over Miami Nights. Okay. We're actually going to put it right there. Orange. Got to spell it right. It's important. Orange Vibe is going to be our new number 32. It's better than G Fuel Miami Nights. And G Fuel Miami Christmas Nights as well. I was hoping that this was going to end up being a top 10 when I was pulling it out this morning to throw in the freezer. I was like, this is going to be the one. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. And it's all right. It's every sip is a little bit different, right? It's yeah. Maybe I need to shake these and then let them settle before I open them. I don't know what the Well, there you have it. Congratulations to G Fuel or to KSI, the person. Okay. Kick some ice. Is that kick? We go get up there, kick some ice. Is that what is? I don't know. Does that stand for something? Is this something boring? Like it's Kevin. It's because the K is for Kevin. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, let's get into what actually matters. It's the PlayStation VR2. Here it is. Oh, hello. I was just holding this VR headset. This is the ups and downs of this thing are way more complicated than I initially expected. And so as I kind of dove in and started spending more and more time with the headset, it was like, you know what? This is a really, really, really well-made headset. And you would hope so for $550 frickin' dollars. That would be, it for that amount of money, it had better be a damn good headset, right? And you're in luck. It is. It's got OLED screens with HDR support, and that ends up being kind of awesome. I don't know if you have spent enough time in VR, you kind of have a there's sometimes when you're just standing there and you're in the middle of this gray void, like a game is loading and the screen has gone black, but the screen can't go all the way black, and so it's still powered on, and so you have this powered on blank screen right in front of your face, and so you're just like there in the gray, just going, ugh, waiting for the world to reappear around you. And having that, the combination of OLED and HDR and what have you leads to more darkness, the right kind of darkness, if that makes any sense. And having that kind of color range, I guess, really does make a difference in those moments, right? Because it would always, that was one of those immersion breaking things when you're just like, it only can get this dark. If the screen is on, it's still going to be this kind of light black, this kind of dingy dark gray, at most, at darkest. And so it always just made you feel like, yep, I'm just staring right at a screen. I got a screen right in front of my face. Look at this screen. I don't think necessarily that like you're going to get lost in this, be like, it's real, baby. It's not that, but that really actually helps quite a lot. And I believe it was John Linneman was talking on Twitter yesterday. There's a tweet making the rounds about Gran Turismo 7 in VR, which I just tried this morning, like minutes before we went live. Like I basically took the headset off and then started the stream because that patch just came out like late last night. And for starters, I was fumbling around going like, I don't see any settings in here to make it VR. I don't understand and then it turns out if you just are wearing the headset, when you hit start race, it goes from the flat panel in front of your face to, oh, now you're in VR. And now you're out of it or whatever. And so cockpits in VR are one of the easy, I don't want to say easy, but I don't mean easy in terms of development or in terms of making a game, but I mean in terms of conveying the concept of VR to another person, for like as a first time experience or as like a hey, this actually feels like the real thing. games that put you in a cockpit are extremely effective at conveying that feeling. And so getting into these cars where they signed they went and rendered all the interiors of these cars, and you maybe see those in game if you're playing first person dashboard view, but you never really get to see them a lot and appreciate them. There was something about like, just I'm in this car. And yeah, I'm holding a controller because I'm not a steering wheel nut job, but I'm in this car. And I'm looking out the window and shit is moving past me at a speed that seems appropriate. The frame rate, is not, it's not the frame rate of real life. So when you look out there and see things whizzing by, you're like, I'm going fast, but also, it's a video game. You can turn around and look at the back seats and all of that. All the mirrors work, your side mirror, your rear view mirror. And then I hit a point in the track. It was like a 5-lap race. And on lap 4, I don't know if the game is doing, I don't know if I just was in the right spot or whatever, if the game is doing a little bit of like time of day stuff, but I just haven't played enough Gran Turismo 7 to know. But the sun started peeking over the top of the stadium, and I ducked my head down a little bit because I'm pretty tall in a car. And it turns out that applied to this, where I was up there pretty high. And I kind of crouched down a little bit, and then the sun, I had the same experience I saw that John was talking about a little bit, so similar, where like the sun came in through the window, and I was like, for a minute. I was like, geez, that's don't look at the sun, it turns out. And that had never happened in VR. The idea of the sun being so bright in a way that was like actually startling, like Jesus. And so I'm going to say that's probably due to the quality of the screens, the OLED, the HDR, all of that stuff kind of coming together. And, your eyes probably get used to what you're looking at in front of you, right? So anything that harsh coming at you is going to be harsh. And that was striking. It was pretty awesome to have that moment. The rest of the game, hey, it's if you've done racing games in VR, if you've played Gran Turismo 7, you kind of know exactly what that is, and it is that, but it's nice to be able to take it, because I can't drive, I can't play driving games in a cockpit view on a flat screen. It just doesn't. You're cutting off so much of the real estate, so much of the situational awareness that you get in some of the other camera angles, whether that's a bumper cam or third person, like kind of whatever. Like I just, you lose too much situational awareness that way. And so I can't play effectively in a first person view. But obviously VR solves that problem completely, because you can just look around and you can look in your mirror. And if you're not seeing what you need to in the mirror, you can cheat your head over to get a different view of what's behind you. You can turn around and look out the back frickin' window if you want to. And that's great. It's great. It's a really well implemented. I mean, this is me playing one race, right? So I'm this is not the definitive breakdown of Gran Turismo 7 in VR, but in terms of just like getting in there and seeing it, it's like, yep. On one hand, this does exactly what you expect it to do. On the other hand, it does it very well, because Gran Turismo, by design, puts a lot of extra effort into those things that are, is going to pay off in the most direct way, honestly, in VR. Like all of the work that they do about, car audio and rendering the interiors of the cars and everything. Like I said, as someone who doesn't drive in those viewpoints, it's a gigantic waste of time for me. I'm like, oh yeah, you rendered all this stuff. That's sweet. I'm never going to see it. But now, because they did that work, you're like, this is killer. This is great. Look at the dashboard of this car. What an awesome looking thing. Yeah, so that's just a great implementation of that, as you'd expect, honestly. The very idea of cockpit VR merged with a game that goes overboard on those types of assets, like that comes together in a way that like makes the most sense of anything ever. So I'm sorry. It has been the last week. I have been just every single day, just allergies nonstop. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sniffle my way through this show, because it's just been a disaster here the last week and a half. So that was a pleasant surprise, I guess. Like the short version of, hey, what do you think about PlayStation VR2? Is I think it's an amazing headset. I think it's far too much money, and I don't think the launch lineup is actually great. And I think that even there are a lot of games out around launch. They just announced 10 more this morning, which seems weird considering it's out tomorrow. They're like, the launch window's bigger now, which is like just fucking strange. But I think the thing, like, look, there's VR. We talked about it in the last couple of weeks here that virtual reality has basically been with us for about a decade now, unless you're like unless you're super old and one of these Jaren linear types, and then you've been playing Dactyl Nightmare or whatever since 1992, and I think that a lot of the problems with the medium of virtual reality are pretty well established. The limitations, the how does it fit into my lifestyle, the space concerns, all of that stuff. I think a lot of us have already thought about one way or the other, and it's decided how far we are willing to go to get that virtual reality experience. This is a really great headset. I don't think it's going to change anything about the trajectory of VR in general. I think it will be nice for developers who are already out there making VR games to have one more platform to ship to, because that will help them break even faster and hopefully be profitable. But the biggest problem with PlayStation VR 2 is that it only hooks up to a PlayStation. The idea of spending $550 on a VR headset that can only hook up to this closed, walled garden, like you can only play games on this storefront, you can only buy games on this storefront, and so on and so forth. That's a really limiting factor, because the thing about VR is that it's utter chaos. The VR market out there, the VR enthusiasts out there in the world are doing all kinds of crazy things, whether it's mods or just experimental things, or like, hey, I took Quake 1 and put it in VR because that source code's out there. And, hey, you can install a mod to play Cyberpunk 2077 in virtual reality. Or, hey, you can do custom songs in Beat Saber. And so when you don't have those, like when you are closed off and limited to the PlayStation 5, the full experimental crazy world of VR is not there for you, VR chat is not there for you. And maybe VR chat comes out on PlayStation VR 2 at some point. That'd be cool. Like, would they, VR chat gets real nuts in a way that doesn't seem like it's compatible with Sony's ratings system and whatever else. Like the idea of just like, hey, whatever player model you want to make is in there, and it's sometimes it might get a little porny depending on where you are. And I think VR chat is one of those perfect examples of unbridled virtual reality is the best virtual reality. And so the very idea of here's this headset and you plug it in and you can buy these 40 games for it and that's about it is limiting in a way that really it's not a deal breaker. I think that like there's this very specific person who is not going to be techie enough and doesn't have a PC or whatever the reasons are. But like, I guess I would argue at that point, like if you don't have that stuff and you got $550 to spend, I would put that into a fund to get something else. I feel like there's better bang for the buck in gaming. That I would maybe put that money into a fund to help buy yourself. I don't know. Is it a Steam Deck? Is it a put it into a fund for a better PC? Like put it into your GPU fund? Whatever it is, and you might just be better served even if you don't get a VR headset right away. Moving in that direction, I think you're gonna get something a lot cooler on the other end of it. I don't know. It's really hard to envision like who is the perfect person to buy a PlayStation VR2, because it's like a person who like is very definitively like I'm not only do I not have a PC, I am never going to get one. And this is because even in those cases, the question comes up like, would you be better served with an Oculus Quest 2? Because that's something you could hook up to a PC if you ever did get one someday. But also it runs games on its own. You can sideload things onto it, so there is some weird stuff that you can experience with a Quest 2. And so it's just it's a really murky thing. And so that I think kind of weighs this whole thing down, where I can sit here and I can tell you like the PlayStation VR2 is among the best headsets I've ever used in terms of comfort and technology and features. Like across the board, it has its pros and cons, but I think when you weigh it out in terms of just like, is it good or not, remove the price, remove all these other concepts, you're like, yeah, it's a great headset. It's a great headset. But it's only something you can hook up to a PlayStation 5. It costs more than a PlayStation 5. And so you're locked into this scenario where you have to trust that not only, you have to trust that you're going to get games big and small on PlayStation VR, on the PlayStation 5. And I think that Sony has maybe not done, the Gran Turismo 7 patch hitting, it was like, okay, actually, you know what, this is really nice. I guess I could have done with some more big time kind of like big releases, some more subsidized large games. Instead, really the only thing we're getting that hasn't appeared anywhere else is Horizon Call of the Mountain. And, it's a VR game set in the Horizon universe. And it's a climbing game. And it's beautiful. Like there's an intro sequence where you get a bag over your head and, it's the Skyrim opening, except you're on a boat. And you are being canoed down this river by these guys who have taken you prisoner, and you are seeing the metal creatures of the Horizon universe kind of swim under you and stomp over you. And so they do all these big, crazy scale moments in the early part of the game where you're like, oh gosh, this is, and it looks great. There are like vistas, like you walk out onto an edge and look at the mountain across it and you're like, man, that looks fucking awesome. PlayStation 5, huh? Pretty powerful. This is nice. And then it becomes a video game and you're like, oh, this is like a worse version of The Climb, that VR game where you climbed a mountain by just, you're kind of just triggering your way up, and you're like, oh, okay, here's another ledge that has a bunch of white chalk on the top of it. So I'm going to put my hand here, and then I'll put my hand here, and then I'll put my hand here and pull it over here, and then pull it over here. And it is incredibly monotonous. Unlike The Climb, they do break it up with some combat and some other kind of walking around stuff. I found the combat to be really uninteresting. It is, the kind of first combat you're doing is you're doing the thing where you're going behind your back and pulling a bow out, going behind, pulling out arrows over and over again. And so you're shooting into the eye of the watcher and the different creatures and stuff. And your movement is like, you can kind of dodge to the side, you can walk and you can back up. And I thought the movement itself was a real, kind of weak. I don't know, just in terms of your overall speed. So it's got 3 different comfort mode settings. I'm playing it on the most intense one. And what they want you to do to walk is you hold down the bottom buttons, which I guess is like square and X. It's like, and then when you're holding those down, if you do this, you'll move forward, and you can kind of turn and walk, and that's generally what you do. If you're holding those buttons down, you kind of swipe to the side, you'll do a dash to the side. And then if you want to walk backwards, you have to hold those buttons down and then put your arms up in front of you and like you push away. And so you're constantly pushing to step back, and it is ridiculous. I want, the highest speed you get, because you can't just like pump your arms as fast as you can and run. It only moves at a certain speed, and that certain speed is fucking slow because they don't want people to get sick. Look, I mean, they have to make these games for a wide range of people, and there's going to be best practices and guidelines in place. Guidelines in place that, even at the most extreme control setting, they're still going to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to not have vignetting and we're going to let you turn and not have click turning, but we're still not going to let you run at full speed. And I found that to be very frustrating because, you're doing these like stupid, simple puzzles in the early parts of the game, and you're just like, okay, all right, now I'm going to trudge over here, and oh, look, a key, and I picked up a key, and now I'm going to turn and then walk over to the lock and put the key in the lock, and oh, look, what a novel interaction I'm having holding this key up to this lock, and it's just all very dull. Gorgeous, like amazing vistas, and really awesome visuals across the board, but freaking dull. And so having that be like the game that gets the pack in, well, it's not a pack in, you can buy a version of the headset that comes with it for an additional fee. And it's yeah, it's very pretty, but I already don't want to play any more of it, and so that's not great to have like what is kind of the marquee game for the platform be kind of throwaway. I don't know. The bow and arrow aiming also I found to be not great. Like looking down the sights of it, I feel like a lot of games have done that first person, the VR aiming of a bow and arrow a lot better. And the bow has a lot of shit on it, and so you don't really get a good clean look down the sights or down the arrow. And so instead, when you have aimed properly at a target, you will see a shing, like a little spark of light come off the front of the arrow, and that's your indication that you're lined up. And I think that's a bummer of a way to handle it. I mean, the whole point of first person aiming is that it's first person aiming. You just look and do it. And so that it feels like it's in its own way. And I thought that there's just stuff there that just, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a great game. Beautiful, like awesome visuals. Like, if it was your first VR thing and you hadn't played The Climb and you hadn't played some of this other stuff, you might be a little kinder to it than I am here. But like, yeah, man, it's pretty thin. And then what else? So I let's bring up the list. I've played a smattering of games. I have not played every single PlayStation VR2 game. Let's talk about the setup process. I was really impressed with the setup process. Getting the headset, getting your play space mapped out, all of that. They've really taken a lot of the guesswork out of a lot of the different aspects of getting that stuff up and running. The tracking is really good, and so basically once you get it on, you go through the first basic things where it's like, hey, you should be 12 or older, or whatever it is. It shows you the pass-through camera, which is a great high quality pass-through camera. It's not color, it's still black and white, but it's a really good pass-through camera, and there's a button to turn that on at any time in case you need to look around you or talk to a person, or whatever's going on. And then it has you kind of use that pass-through camera to map out your play space. And you actually do that by just looking around your room. And so as you do that, it is drawing polygons around if you have shit on your floor, for example, if one were to have a bunch of children's toys on the floor in their room, it would see that and go like, oh, that's not safe. And so it generally kind of figures out where your floor is and what the open space on your floor is, and so on and so forth. Once you're done with that automatic process, you can go in and edit it manually, which I had to do. Because this chair I'm sitting on is sitting on tempered glass, and the reflection on the glass, whatever, was just not, it was like, we don't know what this is, but we're pretty sure you shouldn't walk on it. And so I had to manually go in there and be like, no, this is fine. We can walk on this. And once I did that, it was like, okay. And so you can touch up your square basically before you go in. It's all very easily done. And it's pretty good. From there, it goes on to eye tracking. And so this is the first time I've ever done anything with eye tracking. I think ever. I don't know that I've ever done it on a PC, even with any kind of, I know there's different gear out there for that sort of stuff on the PC, but they have you calibrate the eye tracking, and so you're it's almost like the Master Chief, like, look at the lights thing in a weird way. They don't gamify it at all. It's just like, it's a dot on a black screen. Look at the dot. But the dot moves around and you're kind of following it with your eyeballs, and it goes through that whole process, and then it has you test it, make sure it works, and you look around the edges and all of that. And I thought that was pretty well done, but it actually, the eye tracking leads to a really convenient, this is so in the past, if you've calibrated a VR headset, depending on which one you've used before, there is the concept of your IPD, your interpupillary distance, basically the distance between your eyeballs. The first time I wore a HoloLens, Microsoft actually had to measure this. They put a thing on your face and adjusted it, and then they wrote like 46 or whatever on a piece of cardboard and handed it to you as you were going through the Halo experience at E3. And so obviously that was all pre-release weird HoloLens shit. And so there's been different ways that this has been done, where they'll just say like, hey, there's a knob here and it will move the lenses in and out. When everything looks clear to you, that's good. And it was always this very non-specific thing, and you're like, I don't know, this seems, it never felt like an exact science. It never felt like I've dialed it in perfectly and now this looks perfect. And so it was always a little bit of guesswork, or a little bit of just like, which one looks better, this or this? I'm like, I don't know. They both look kind of messed up. And I guess this one. So what this does is it uses the eye tracking cameras to say, hey, you need to adjust. Basically, it represents your eyes as a couple of circles, and then puts another couple of circles around them representing the lenses. And so there's a dial on the top of the headset, and as you turn that, the circles will move in and out. And then, you can kind of move the headset up and down on your face. And basically, you're like trying to get your eyes in the center of the lenses. And it's a very slick process. And then once you've done that, it goes ding, you're good. And you're like, oh, wait, actually, yes, this is perfect. Like, this is perfectly configured. It is the easiest I've ever had dealt with that process of just like getting a VR headset on and dialed in. And it's great. I thought that aspect of it was really, really good. Eye tracking, so far as it's a thing you do in games, I'm really not sold on it. They're using it in some cases for foveated rendering, which is, they're putting more pixels where your eyes are looking, and that's something they can do to, kind of help with, making things look better when you're seeing them, and then not devoting the processing power to make things look better at the edges of your vision, and so on and so forth. But Res Infinite uses it, and Horizon uses it, and yeah, it's so in Res there's a mode you turn on. They have 4 different types of aiming that you can use, and the 4th one is the new eye tracking mode. And you still have to use your head, I think, is the big thing there. Is like, I felt like I was looking up as far as I could, and the reticle still wasn't reaching the top of my vision. And so I would have to like tilt my head back a little bit to get it the rest of the way. And just it didn't feel good, or it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm shooting these things so fast because I'm aiming and doing, oh yes, oh, look at this, I'm making it happen. Is there any calibration? I just spent all this time talking about eye tracking calibration. Just spent a lot of time talking about it. Yeah, so it just did not feel great. Also, it kind of lags behind, your eyes move pretty fast, right? And so as your eyes are darting around the screen, having a reticle kind of catching up, a little bit. I don't know. It wasn't, I did not have a great experience with the eye tracking in Res. It didn't seem like the most effective way to play it. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel great. It was more of an interesting kind of study of just like, okay, yeah, I guess you can do this. I guess it works, but it's not really, it doesn't really seem like a good way to play this game. And so I went back to, I went back to using the hand controllers to aim, and you can turn your head and aim, and I found that just to be a better way to play it. Maybe that's something that obviously, you with time you start to prefer eye tracking or something like that. But I feel like, just like I said, the reticle felt a little sluggish. It felt like I couldn't quite reach, like I'm looking higher than this reticle is moving, and that's frustrating, like little things like that. So yeah, I don't think I would recommend the eye tracking there. Give it a shot, because it's neat to see it happening. If you are gonna, hey, if you're gonna take the plunge on this stuff, try it all. I mean, might as well. In Horizon, it was really only used for menus, like when you pause the game or when you're selecting things off a screen, and it's a weird feel. Like so it's like you're looking at, there are 3 options on the menu, and as you're looking back and forth, it's going, the highlight is moving, and because you only, basically like you look at the option and push X to select it, right? And yeah, obviously that's a pretty low, low use of it, just using it on your pause menus and the setup menus and stuff like that. But in some ways, it feels like almost like it's getting ahead of you. It's like it's weirdly forward, where I'm looking at, okay, there are 3 items on this menu, and I'm going to read them all to figure out which one is which. And as I'm doing it, the highlight is moving with them, and I'm like, whoa, no, like I'm not picking one yet. I'm still reading my options here. Back the fuck off, man. I'll make a decision when I'm ready. Like I didn't like it. It just felt odd, and not necessarily all that useful, because it's it's stuff on a menu. I can push up and down, I can push left and right. It's not that big a deal. But yeah, I don't know. It's strange having the eye tracking stuff, I guess, is the way I would put it. And yeah, so like I said, you draw your room scale area. The PlayStation VR2 has a very rigid definition of what it considers to be room scale versus standing or sitting. And basically they want a 6 feet 7 inch square. You need 6 feet and 7 inches in both directions. And if you define a play space that is not 6 foot 7 inches, it says, hey, this is not going to be suitable for moving around. And you're making one for just standing up. Is that cool? And you're like, I guess that's the space. I guess that's all the room I have. So I guess so. And so it then limits you to standing experiences. In some cases, this prevents you from even launching games. So What the Bat is a game that is out on PlayStation VR2. It's the follow-up to What the Golf, which was a hilarious, weird batch of kind of, I guess, more micro games than mini games about ruminating on golf. And this is what if you had bats for hands? And so it's a lot of you hitting things with your bat hands and also doing silly shit like brushing your teeth with a bat and serving coffee to cats with a bat and so on and so forth. It's fun. It's very, I'd say it's very slight. What the Golf was very slight. Also, What the Golf was a game that I played mostly on a phone, right? And it just something about, okay, time to strap all this shit on so I can play this very slight, kind of carefree. It just, it was a little, it was a little weird. Anyway, if you have not prepared a play space that is a minimum of 6 feet 7 inches in both directions, when you go to try to launch What the Bat, it just comes up and says like, no, you can't. It totally prevents you from even launching the game. And so the first time I drew out my play space, it did not meet the room scale definition. And so I was like, well, whatever. Who cares? And then once I saw that, I was like, well, shit, okay, fuck. I guess I gotta, all right, I'll go back into setup and see. Cause I took out, cause the iPhone will do distance measurement and it's not a perfect science, but I was like, this space has to be at least that big. I took this thing out of here and moved moved everything I could. This chair, got the hell out of the way. And measured it. And I was like, no, this is 7 feet side to side. And I'm pretty sure the depth here in this room is at least that much as well. Right. And so, so when I redrew the space, that was when I realized, I need to manually color in under this glass thing because it doesn't think that's area, that I can stand on. Yeah, so once I did that, then I could launch the game and it was fine, but it just, I don't know, it was like this real reminder of like, I hope that the games in the store are very upfront about which modes they support, because if you are a person who doesn't have that kind of space, hopefully it is not letting you buy those games, or it's throwing up a warning and being like, hey, we noticed your play space that you have mapped out right now is not room scale compliant, so you maybe don't want to buy this game because we are not going to let you load it up at all, not even to try it. And so yeah, I don't know, that just draw the square through the furniture. I don't think you can actually do that. I should try it, but because it does so much of the mapping itself from you looking around the room, like I couldn't, because so it knew that there was a desk here basically and did not want me to draw floor space under the desk, if that makes any sense. And so it seems like anything can only be one height. So if it knows there's a couch there, I think it's going to know like, nah, the flat space is up 1.5 feet here. I don't think that's gonna, and so you might not be able to. I'll try it. I'll try it next time I put it on. And honestly, I don't want to. I don't want to just. I don't want to ever touch the play space stuff again. I just want it to work. Never have to think about it. But the other thing I had happen is that I ran into some situations where the headset just lost tracking mid-game. This is not great, obviously. And this would pop up in a couple of different ways. It seemed to happen most when I was playing Horizon and when I was playing Townsman VR, which is a little city, you know, it's a little island full of dudes, and you can pick them up and throw them around. It seemed like it would happen the most when I was lifting the controllers over my head, which in Horizon you were doing a lot because you are literally climbing. And so sometimes I would have my hands over my head and it would just cut to the pass-through camera. Like the game would completely stop, cut to the pass-through camera and be like, hey, we don't have tracking and you should you might need to redraw your play space if this keeps up. And then it would correct itself and whatever, and then it would go back into the game. But it kept doing that. That happened probably 7 or 8 times over the course of like a, you know, half-hour session with Horizon. And you know, obviously, yes, the limitations of inside-out tracking are real. You know, it's cut against the convenience of not having to hang things on your walls, which I think is ridiculous for people to be doing to play these games. You know what I mean? And also, there would occasionally be some stuttery stuff where, like, as it was losing tracking, sometimes it would do this and then cut to the pass-through camera, but sometimes it would just be like, oh, we've lost tracking, and now all motion has ceased. And so you're still moving your head, but the world is now static, and whoa, don't fall over. If you've done VR before, you've probably seen that happen. A loss of tracking while you're wearing the headset and what that looks like and how that feels. You know, it's not unique to PlayStation VR2, but it did happen a handful of times. And was frustrating. I had a terrible time with the original PlayStation VR in terms of getting it working at home and getting the tracking to stay consistent and all of those sorts of things. I think that thing was a real, like a very comfortable to wear, but kind of a piece of shit in terms of getting it working on a regular basis. Outside of like very carefully controlled demo and test environments, I had nothing but trouble with it. Lights on, lights off, lighting, no lighting, like across the board, just terrible. This is significantly better than that. I mean, you know, obviously the not going with the stupid ass camera for tracking and holding literal PlayStation Move controllers. Oh God, that thing was a nightmare. So, you know, this is a huge improvement over that, and they maintain a lot of the comfort and the other things that did make that headset, you know, nice in some ways, right? In terms of just like field of view and a lot of that stuff, I think it is technically like wider than the Quest 2. You know, if you were doing side-by-side comparisons, you would probably notice that a lot more. It still looks like you're wearing goggles, you know, it is still not your full peripheral vision in a field of view thing. Like, obviously, that's the... I feel like until we get to that, we're still like looking through a tunnel into a 3D world, right? And it still does that. I don't think it's the highest FOV on the market, but it's in line with some of that other stuff, and I think it's generally fine. I think the quality of the screens is really good, and the HDR seems like something that can be very meaningful there. So again, you know, I think the hardware itself is quite good. But you know, it's really hard to look at, you know, like 40 games in the launch window. That's a high number, right? that's a really solid number of games. And like I said, they just announced another 10 of them. Some of these have been elsewhere. Like Gorn is going to come to PlayStation VR2 on March 16th. Like, okay. Gorn is good. If you have not played Gorn, it's fun, physicsy, fucking punching ragdoll dudes in the face, and it's a good time. Something called Knock Bow and Arrow Soccer is coming out in March. There's a decent number of multiplayer games coming out, or games that at least have a multiplayer component in them. And I just feel like that seems like a real waste of time. I don't know. I think multiplayer VR is awesome, and like Rec Room is really great, and Rec Room needs to come out on this thing. That kind of needs to happen, and then that'll be a big deal. But having these like, hey, we made and I don't want to knock this game specifically, but hey, we made a game in which you play soccer with a bow and arrow. Players can skate and fly around a dynamic pitch using their bow and arrow to blast the ball into their opponent's goal. That sounds like a fun, cool little thing. Is that going to have a player base in a month? Is that going to have a player base in 6 months? Am I going to ever play that game multiplayer once? Like, there are plenty of 2D games that come out and it's very hard to find a match. And now you're making one for a headset that costs $550 and only hooks up to a PS5. Their multiplayer games on VR will need to be cross-play where appropriate, I think, because you need to maximize. You need to have every player you can in the same hopper. Right. Yes. Echo Arena seemed to be doing all right. And yes, Facebook is shutting that game down. The Nerf VR game that came out about a year ago is just announced it was shutting down. And so I think there's a real, like, knock here says it's got ranked multiplayer, casual custom games, and skill-based matchmaking. And it does say it's cross-platform. So is that on Steam already? And again, I don't mean to single this game out in particular. It's more just that, like, hey, this is like, is it worth it for you to spend a lot of time developing a bunch of cool multiplayer modes in VR games when, like, VR kind of is what it is? I think stuff like Pavlov, like, those games have broken through. The games that break through, right? And so I guess maybe you hope, like, hey, this is going to be Rocket League for VR, maybe. But at the same time, like, gosh, what do you, like, in a world where so many multiplayer games launch and die immediately, in terms of, like, how you're gonna, are you ever gonna find another human player matchmaking ever? Look at, like, Windjammers 2. That game came out on Game Pass and it was still hard to find matches, even though that thing was free on one platform, and that stuff's rough. Either you break through or you don't, and the vast majority of games don't. And so I just look at this and go, like, man, that's a big bet to place development wise, to be like, yeah, we got all this cool multiplayer stuff. Like, all right, are people going to ever see that or not? I just don't know. That's something, Cosmic Smash is coming out, or that demo's coming out next month, but and that has a versus mode in it of some kind. So yeah, I think, the takeaway here is that this is an awesome VR headset. That said, it is also a VR headset. And at this point, now that we're this many years into virtual reality being a consumer experience, I think a lot of people have made up their mind as to whether or not they want that. And, you know, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say like this VR headset doesn't change the world and thus who cares, you know, but, you know, I think that VR needs something more, and I'm not sure what that is. It's games, right? I guess at the end of the day, because like, or is it games, or is it like even weirder, more immersive hardware? Right? Do we need multi-directional treadmills so that we can really run on these things and really go crazy? Do all the headsets need to be standalone so that you're not tethered? Do you need, you know, like all these things would improve the experience in some ways, but also people are, you know, in a world where people don't want to fucking go get lighthouses and put them on their walls, like that's something for a very specific crowd, right? That's a very specific, dedicated VR audience. And so all the inside out tracking, even though it has its cons, is still the right way to go for mainstream devices. And, you know, we're just going to end up segmenting this market 9 more ways, right? If you're like, oh, hey, we put out a multi-directional treadmill for this thing. You don't have to buy it, but it sure is cool. And no one's going to fucking buy it because no one's, you know, like it's no one's going to have room for it unless they're nut jobs. And yeah. And so I think that the whole market, the whole VR market is really caught in this chicken and egg situation where they could develop the hardware, but they have to subsidize all these developers to make games for it. And as soon as they stop subsidizing devs, it's not like they've finished the job and there's such a huge install base that other developers are like, oh, thank you for subsidizing the early days of VR, and now we can come in and benefit from that and make a whole lot of money. Like the smaller developers certainly are benefiting from that sort of thing. But you're not going to see like, oh, guess what? The next big game from fucking Respawn, even though they literally did do something like this, is only available in VR. You know, it's not, they're not putting the next Star Wars only in VR. They're not putting, you know, it's not going to be like, hey man, the next Halo, it's VR only. No, that's not, you know, Valve tried with Half-Life, you know, people played it. Some people played it. But, you know, like, I think you could also make the case that, like, Half-Life, the franchise, as much as it is near and dear to the hearts of people who play games on a regular basis and are deep in the hole and all that stuff, I bet the acknowledgement, like the awareness of Half-Life is really low compared to, you know, Halo, compared to, you know, the other games you might compare it to. It's you know, Half-Life is, again, it's a very big PC franchise, and, you know, I don't think that moves the needle outside of that existing audience. It's a very large audience, but it's not a mainstream audience. It's not an audience that goes like, I'm going to go do, you know, and so, yeah, I don't know. Like, did Half-Life Alyx sell VR headsets? Definitely. Of course it did. But it sold them to people that were already so far down a rabbit hole anyway that, like, I don't think Half-Life Alyx makes it more I don't think it makes anything more mainstream, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? And so I think there's, you know, there's still people that are just like, yeah, Laser Ghost Robot says, no Alyx on PSVR 2 is rough. I don't think Valve has a great reason to do it. You know? Like, if Valve was just a VR company, if that was the only thing they did, then yeah, then in some ways it's in their best interest to make sure that those games are everywhere. But as I've said, if Valve really is going to launch their own standalone VR headset, sort of like a Quest 2, if they're going to make a Steam Deck that you strap to your face, whatever you want to call it, whatever these Deckard rumors are, if they're going to do that, then all of their focus would be on making sure that Half-Life Alyx ran well on that. And they don't care. They want to sell those. They're not out there, like for the good of VR. It's good for everybody if more people have VR headsets, because they don't just do VR. They do, well, I don't know. Like I said, they roll their desks around a lot. They have Counter-Strike skins. They're deep in the Counter-Strike skin. They're running a Counter-Strike skins gambling business. They have a whole lot of things going on. So yeah, I just don't think it's a guarantee that Alyx comes to VR, to PlayStation VR. Because again, they're not, and their own VR interests seem very mixed these days. Obviously, they put out all the VR stuff and then got very big on the Steam Deck, and now that's done really well for them. And so now they're like all rah-rah about the Steam Deck at the expense of, like, you don't really hear them talking about a lot of VR stuff. Did the big Steam VR update they've been promising for years ever actually come out? I don't think it did. And so their own dedication to VR is maybe not what you might think it would be, because they're out there looking at the Steam Deck now and going like, well, this is fucking awesome. And if they can join those two in a way where they use a lot of the Steam Deck technology to power a self-contained VR headset that you can also hook up to a PC, I think that would be a really good move for them. I think that would be a really awesome device, because again, the closed guard, the walled garden, the closed off storefronts, the closed nature of PSN, of the PlayStation Store, of the PlayStation hardware, really runs counter to the things that make VR truly magical. Because what makes VR truly magical is being able to go in a chat room with Peter Griffin and 9 different cat girls and Barney from the Simpsons, and also Gordon Freeman is there, because why not? And 4 different Gokus wearing 4 different types of sick jackets. Those sorts of experiences, the experience of VR chat, the being able to download weird mods and go like, this might make me sick, but I really want to know what's going on with this. I really want to see this thing. Being able to just like go download weird, user-made mods that add VR into other games, and like Cyberpunk or some of this other stuff. I think that's what you really want. I think you really want to get out there and experience the edge. And there's no edge on a closed store at all. And so that is to me, the biggest knock against PlayStation VR2. It's not its own fault. I mean, of course it's this way. Like I don't, and so take that into account. But to me, the biggest knock is that, like, there's so much crazy stuff still happening around the edges in VR, in VR development, in mod development, all this other stuff. Like, I think that to go and spend this kind of money on a headset that will not allow you to experience all of that insanity, would be a real shame. And so, that's why, in a perfect world, someone does eventually figure out a way to hack this headset into working on a PC. That'd be pretty cool. But, and it honestly, it's hard to recommend the Quest in some ways too, because the Quest 2, obviously, you can hook it up to a PC, do all that stuff. You can sideload stuff directly onto the Quest and do all of that. But do you trust Facebook to keep updating this thing, or are they so far off the rails now? I mean, they cut off the Quest 1 after 4 years, and they're like, oh, we'll do some security updates, but it's not getting any new feature updates. Like, okay, how long has the Quest 2 been out now? And, granted, they don't have a replacement for it. The Quest Pro is not a replacement for the Quest 2. They raised the price on it. And also, they don't seem as invested because, of course, they don't seem super invested in making VR games. They're the ones out there shutting down Ready at Dawn's multiplayer VR game because they bought that studio. And so are they going to be out there funding game development in an ongoing capacity? Or are they just going to get weirder and weirder and be like, no, our work meeting, people are going to have their work meetings in VR. It's like, make up your mind. Half these fucking companies are out here trying to fucking demand that people return to the office. That's not an environment where you need a fucking VR meeting software. You don't need Zoom VR. Get fucked with that bullshit. No one fucking cares. You don't need a sanitized metaverse. You need fucking Catgirl paradise in all things. VR, out of VR, wherever you can get it. This is the future that we demand. Mark Zuckerberg. So, in conclusion, the PlayStation VR2 is, like I said, it's awesome. It's a really well-made headset. It's a really hard thing to recommend, but I don't have an alternative recommendation either right now. That's kind of the weirdest part about it, is because it'd be, under different circumstances, it'd be very easy to say like, hey, the Quest 2, yeah, it's not as high powered of a headset. The FOV is less, the screen resolution, this and that. Like, it's got knocks against it for sure, but it's cheaper and it hooks up to a PC. And so that's the thing to get. But again, with the way that Facebook has been treating VR lately, it's really hard to make that recommendation. And so we're back in this weird situation again, where we're like, oh, I hope those Valve rumors pan out. And that they do have another kind of, because the index is cool, man. But at the same time, hanging things on your wall to do that type of tracking is something for a very specific type of person. And those types of people have already figured out that they're those types of people. And for the rest of us that are like in a house that we're not going to fucking do that to, and maybe if I can get everything moved out to the garage and I have enough fucking floor space out there, I will totally set up light stands and fucking set up the index out there, or whatever, if there's a newer, better headset out there. Like, I would love to have a good ass VR headset hooked up all the time just to fuck around with. But yeah, yes. Vash the Danish says, and Carmack leaving Meta is telling, like, yeah, like that doesn't help. That doesn't help make you go like, this is the company I'm going to buy my VR headset from, because it's just they feel like they're lost. They feel like that they are chasing some total bullshit when it comes to what they want to do in VR. And yeah, so it becomes hard to recommend that as an alternative to this. And the next best recommendation becomes that crazy thing that is even more expensive of like, well, make sure you got a powerful gaming PC and then go out and buy an index and then bolt this shit to your walls and do this and do that. Like that's just an even harder one to make. So I feel like my recommendation on VR is like, you should wait for and see what the next big move is, what the next big tech move is in VR, because obviously we want to get to a point where we are using standalone, freestanding, probably AR goggles that you can black out to do pure VR in if you so desire, and whatever, right? I don't know. Can the PlayStation VR2 be used to watch adult films? I don't have the answer to that question because I don't know how to watch any films on a PlayStation 5. I guess there's a Plex app, but I know the Plex app does not support. I don't believe any Plex apps support any sort of 3D, any kind of virtual reality video viewing. And so I don't know. You can load VR video files onto the PlayStation 5 and watch them. Okay, Chad is telling me that someone else must have done the legwork there. And do I have to get a USB stick for this? Do I have to get a USB stick for this? I lost my USB stick with my virtual reality test videos. It's important for my review purposes. Put it in. Anyway. VR porn is silly. It's hilarious. I think if you are open to viewing pornography, it is something worth seeing a few times. You just look at it going, this is fucking ridiculous. What? Can you browse the internet in VR? So, when you're outside of, you can do basically the whole PlayStation interface just shows up on a fake screen in front of you when you're not in VR. And so you navigate the interface the same way you would on a TV. And anything that's not in VR, you should still be able to play on that screen. So if you want to play Call of Duty on a fake screen inside your head, you can do that. And yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend doing that, but that's always gonna be one of those things that depends on, like, hey, what kind of TV do you have? If you have a really bad TV, then maybe the VR headset fake TV would be a better way to play games, but I don't know. Yeah, so I guess I wish I had a more definitive, like, this is what you should do. But I guess the closest I can get to that is, like, maybe wait and see what Sony does in terms of future software development. And I guess I don't think it's a wise move to buy a VR headset based on future promises, because I think the market for VR software is so weird and it gets weirder all the time that I really feel like you need to, you're best served by looking at what's available. If you look at the lineup today and go, like, this is enough games for me to spend this amount of money, then I would say fucking go for it. Gran Turismo is really cool in VR. But again, I would wait and see, like, what actually ships. And when it gets to a point where you see a lot of things out there and you're like, there's a lot of stuff out here I feel like I need to own, now is the right time to buy. I would probably approach it that way. And not buy it based on them saying, oh, we've got 100 games in development. Like, okay, how many of those are, like, ping pong simulators? And, like how many of those are shooting galleries? How many of those are the same 4 VR genres over and over again? But this one's got a vaporwave twist. You gotta wait and see what actually comes out, because I think even, you look at the stuff that's on Steam. And someone in chat has said, I love me some vaporwave, though. It's like, okay, if you do, then you should hate those games even more. Because to them, vaporwave is like, we put a grid in it and we put a car in it that looks like a fake DeLorean, and look at the sun. It's got these lines across it, and look at the colors. You guys like vaporwave? You're like, yeah, kinda. I mean, clearly you don't even fucking know what it is. Anyway. That aesthetic peaked with Kavinsky, and that's it. It's done. It's fucking like there's so many fucking like $3 things on Steam that are that. It's like it's infinite driving vibes. It's like, ugh, what the fuck is wrong with you? We've put Plunderphonics skins into it. Okay, all right, now I'm listening. Like, God damn it. Call of Duty has a skin pack. I don't know if it's. I bought it because I was like, I'm buying this fucking, and it literally is just like, hey man, now you can take this SUV and put a blue and white grid on it. It's like, ugh, God damn it. We're never gonna escape that shit. We're never like people are gonna think forever that is. Well, look, I'm not gonna get into it. What other games came out? Aka R came out today. I haven't had time to try it because I've been very deep on this VR stuff for the past, handful of days here. Aka R is originally an Atari arcade game that was canceled because it wasn't very good, and the ROMs for it leaked out relatively recently, and it got added to MAME, and so people were able to play it. It also showed up in Atari 50, which is a great way to see that original game. And I guess it's like kind of a reverse missile command, maybe? I don't know. It's anyway, Jeff Minter of tripping the fuck out fame, of feeding his sheepies fame, has made a new Aka R. I guess the first Aka R to be released officially. I guess Atari 50 maybe counts. I got to make sure I'm spelling this right. And so he has taken those concepts and twisted them in the ways that he does from the looks of it. And that sounds very exciting. It is AKKA. And then the second word is R, ARRH. And yes, when you look at it and you go like, yes, this is recognizable as something that is similar to the prototype for Aka R, but also is recognizable as the virtual light machine particle nightmare that Jeff Minter is known for. And that's very exciting. You should, it's $20. I'm going to check it out. Maybe we'll stream some of it this week. Because I am extremely excited to play some of that. And I'm not going to install it right now. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to install this right now. I did play some Returnal, which is out now on the PC. It's Returnal. I don't know. We tried to stream some of it and it crashed a bunch when I was trying to stream it, and that was a little frustrating. But yes, there's a really good interview with Jeff Minter on Eurogamer. I read that last night, and they did the interview in the Curry House. They were in the Curry House. Man, I want to be in the Curry House someday. So, my Returnal is a game I very much want to like, and I went into it on PC trying to give it a fresh start because I hadn't played it since it launched on PS5, and I knew that they had made some updates and some changes since then. I was like, okay, well, let's get back into it. The mechanics, the way that game feels, the way you move, the way the sword swings, and the active reloading, and there's so many good feeling mechanics in that game, but I don't want to play that game. I don't want to play that run as a run-based game. I wish that was a more linear experience. I wish that was a more story-driven experience. Weirdly enough, there's certainly story in Returnal, but the way it unfolds and the kind of the way they leave it at the end, I think is not good. I don't think it's very good. I don't think the story stuff that they put into this game is very good. It's all mystery and no solution. It just doesn't have, like, the revelations are not revelatory in ways that make it satisfying. You're not like, oh yes. And you know, that's a real downer. A real downer, because there's like mysterious moments where you go like, why is my childhood home on this alien planet? And the answers to all of that stuff is like, are just major disappointments. We're just like, oh man, this really didn't, you didn't find a great way to pay all that stuff off. And that's frustrating. I don't know. Yeah, it's a beautiful game. I think it runs quite well on my PC, I'll say. People have been complaining about the specs on that game since the specs got announced, because they are rather steep. And I guess that's because they want that game to reload very quickly, because that game always reloaded very quickly. When you would teleport to a different part of the map, or when you died, it was just like, here's a quick little cutscene, and then boom, you're back in it. And that stuff is really good. And that stuff still works on PC. The game does not have support for direct storage, which is the API that Microsoft cooked up that lets you shoot shit directly at the GPU to kind of, move around a bottleneck. It requires a very fast hard drive and so on. Forspoken seems to be the only game out there that supports that, though. I played some Forspoken with it installed to my C drive, which is the only one that is direct storage ready, and did not find it to be like this amazing load time speed demon whatever. So I don't know. And so my guess is that the high specs on some of Returnal's like RAM requirements and so on are partially designed to help keep that game cooking from moment to moment. And so they at least do largely achieve that. It's interesting to play that game without the vibration of the DualSense controller, because that's a game that does that stuff really well and uses the triggers really well and all of that. And so playing it on an Xbox controller, turns out it's fine. Do I miss that stuff? Yes. But is it missing? Or rather, if you didn't know that stuff was there, would you go, this game feels weird? Absolutely not. No. But you can plug a PlayStation 5 controller into your PC if you are so equipped, and then you will feel the vibrations of the raindrops hitting your spacesuit and all that cool shit. And that's one of the few games that really does the controller stuff really well on PS5. So yeah. But that said, I don't know, Returnal. I wish Returnal was a different game. I guess that's a bad way of putting it. But there are so many good mechanics in Returnal that I wish that they just wrapped those mechanics around an entirely different thing. Yeah, I guess Housemarque is working on whatever is next, and they said it was not necessarily a sequel to Returnal, but it was stuff that stuff they thought of during the development of Returnal and maybe didn't use in Returnal, but are using here. So I wonder if it'll end up being a similar sort of game. I don't know. We will see. Why don't we get into some news, huh? All Elite Wrestling has a video game coming out, and this is something that has taken quite a long time, as that company has somehow weaved its way through a lot of weird turmoil and other stuff while this game was being made, and Kenny Omega, who is a wrestler with All Elite Wrestling, but also an avid video game fan and a vice president of the company, and is apparently like a big part of this game happening, which is really insane when you think about it. When we think about how other, Stone Cold Steve Austin was not out there going like, God damn, we got it. All right, I'm gonna drink a beer now. When to do the stunner, I want you to hit right down circle. That's the right. No, it needs to come out faster. God damn, no. But one gets the impression that more of the actual in-ring wrestling talent has had a hand in making this video game. Aubrey Edwards, the referee, she worked at Fifth Cell prior to this, and so she has experience in the video game industry, and it's just like, it's just crazy. It made them feel very plucky when you're just like, when I was signing an NDA that had Tony Khan's name on it to get access to that management sim game they did for mobile early on, I was just like, this is weird. This feels like a very small time, like kind of family run company in a way. It was kind of nice. Anyway, they still have some of that feel, but I don't know, everything, obviously, it's been a long few years for them. Anyway, whatever. Kenny Omega was on the Swerve City podcast. This is according to Video Games Chronicle. Listen to that podcast so that I didn't have to. Although I kind of want to. I don't know. It sounds like it was an interesting conversation. With Swerve Strickland, who was another AEW wrestler. That is his podcast. And they did talk about the video game and why it has been delayed. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So it sounds like they had to scale things back in order to get a T rating. That the game was maybe a little too bloody, a little too much of a mess to be released in its current form. And so there's a quote here from Kenny Omega. It says, "I'm not too sure how much we had to scale it back, but man, I loved it. You could make the ring look like a murder scene if you wanted to. I hope there's still some way to get a semblance of that. I hope we haven't dumbed it down too much." Which actually, that sentence is very telling in, he did have involvement in putting it together. He's maybe been a little too busy to check in on how it's doing lately. And that the delay kind of did happen here. It does suck that the rating held us back a little because we really wanted to get it out. The longer time goes by, this finished product that we have is going to be a little dated. A lot of the same people are going to be there and are there, but some aren't, and you're going to wonder why someone I've seen on my TV for a week, why isn't he there? And so, every wrestling game launches with a dated roster. WWE has been launching pretty rotten, or very out of date rosters for years now. And so when this game comes out and CM Punk is in it, and Cody Rhodes is in it, that's going to be weird. That's just going to be fucking weird. But it sounds like it's close to finished. I don't know. It's and it sounds like I saw someone had some photos of display boxes that were ready to go out at retail. So like, the fake boxes that just sit on a shelf and say pre-order me or whatever, that they were putting those out. And all of that. So I wonder, like what's going to end up being like the release date for it. Cause there was a date that kind of got out and then they were like, no, it's definitely not coming out. It's not out in 6 weeks. Don't be fucking weird. And yeah, I am very curious to see what this game ends up being, right? Because it's been delayed so many times, because the roster has changed quite a bit, and who's in it, who isn't, who do they end up doing as DLC, and so on and so forth. Like it sounds like that this is going to be a very first generation product in a lot of ways. I mean, they have a lot of, like, if you look at the list of features and modes and everything there, like it sounds like it's got a lot in it, but at the same time, this was something I thought when, like, you know, when news that the tag team FTR wasn't in the game, it was like, okay, is that, you know, is there just like a bunch of, like, will tag team wrestling be given its due in this game or not? I'm going to guess not. It will have tag team matches for sure, but I wonder if that stuff's going to be any good. I wonder if this whole thing is going to be any good, honestly. Because I don't know that a game that is like meant to be like a modern version of WWE No Mercy is enough in this day and age. And so they announced and leaned on a lot of like mini games and everything else to show like you do baseball stuff and this and that. And I was like, okay, that stuff's neat, but like, what about how's about some wrestling? And they put out another video this morning. So, you know, there's stuff out there if you want to see it. But yeah, so yeah, there was at one point, yes, it looked like it maybe was coming out this month. Obviously, that's not going to be the case, but weird. And yeah, yes, will Evil Uno be in the game? He's been out there promoting it this entire time. But like, yeah, the roster, they should just reveal the roster and just kind of take it on the chin one way or the other, and just be like, here's the launch day roster. We want to add more characters. We're in talks with, you know, important indie figures like the Underdraker. Bring them in, you know, like can we get these people into this game? I thought this was an interesting story on Polygon.com. They're kind of recapping some of the details about Destiny 2. Destiny 2's next expansion launches next week, and I am excited to get back into it. I've been dabbling in it off and on over the last month or so, just like I'll play an hour of it here, an hour of it there, but I need to kind of watch the last you know, end of season story thing and just kind of see where they're at on that front. There's a really, oh man, I don't have the post in front of me, but like they refer to this idea as they're talking about changes they want to make to the game and everything. And they're like, as they're building to this conclusion of the entire story arc of Destiny 2, they talk about it as like, as we get closer and closer to the final shape, I'm pretty sure is what they call it. It's like, oh man, when we get ready to go up heaven's chimney, you're going to see some serious shit. And I think that's yeah. Anyway, Lightfall's coming out pretty soon, and everything they've said about what they want to do to that game, because they talk about like, okay, we've discovered as people play this game that these are the things that we wish we could do better in terms of showing them this or helping them here or helping these players play together or whatever. And I feel like over the last several updates, they've been doing really smart things in terms of like kind of correcting those sorts of aspects of the game. Anyway, there's a new system that they are rolling out called Guardian Ranks. And it's 11 ranks in all, and it sounds like it is designed to. So this comes out of, I guess they had a press event, and Polygon was there talking or hearing from the creative director on the game, Tyson Green. He said a lot of people feel aimless unless something catches their attention, or they wind up confused if things get introduced out of order, and we want to fix that. Guardian ranks have been introduced to add that structure to the game. And so this is like a weird thing where the first 5 ranks are really kind of for new players to help them figure out the basics and understand like the core of what is Destiny 2. And so these ranks will reset on a per season basis, but I'm guessing it'll reset you to rank 6, because once you understand the basics and you've been onboarded, you'll probably just reset back to just like, oh, here's the thing to do this season. Here's the new thing to do. And so ranks 6 to 10, it says, will be focused more on season-specific challenges, proving a player knows how to handle themselves in current activities with confidence. And so as those activities kind of roll in and out, then, that it would make sense to reset the ranks down to like, okay, here's the new shit you should be doing. And so that's the thing. Because like I said, I've been playing Destiny 2 off and on for, a while. And when I come back to it, I just kind of like, I open up whatever my, the quest tracker, hold down the left trigger, pull out the little thing on the side, go like, I don't know, I guess I'll do this one. This one sounds like it might be the right thing to do. And half the time it's me doing a thing from like 2 seasons ago, and I'm like, oh, well, this is still fun. It's new to me, but it's this weird thing of like, it still feels very out of step. And a lot of the season-based progression happens at these kiosks on your weird ship and every one of the kiosks looks identical once you get into the menus of just like, I'm going to shape these engrams and to do this and level up this. And well, now this season is here, so I need this currency instead. But the rest of it feels identical. And so they're going to move away from that type of model, which is smart. Or they're gonna change it up, I guess. They're going to completely move away from it. Sounds like they'll do some of that, but not as much of that. And I think that's a huge benefit to the game, honestly. Because I would check in once or around the start of every season. I go like, oh hell yeah, Destiny 2, and then fire it up for a while and be like, yeah. Okay, so now I'm earning these types of currency. I need this artifact to earn this currency to feed to this machine to get this armor that I'm not even sure I really want. And like, what am I even doing? And why am I doing it? And who are these people? And who, and so because you're encountering so many different threads of the story at any given time, because I haven't finished any of those threads, it's a weird thing where I'm still like, they're like, you need to tune your stasis, this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay. I thought I had stasis already. Are we not done with that? Do I need to run over to the pyramid again or whatever it is? The non-final shape? But meanwhile, like that's 3 seasons ago. And so I'm doing all this weird old shit. And yeah, so any kind of thing that helps lend structure to that sounds fantastic. It just sounds smart. It just sounds like good business, and also a better way to guide people through that game. And so I'm very happy to hear that. It's weird because that's in some ways this feels like it is at least trying to address the thought I've had about this game and Warframe and a lot of other live games. Where if you take a break from them and come back, they've introduced 9 new currencies. The way to level up has changed. They've retooled the gear system 4 different times. And so you're coming into it with like gear from 9 expansions ago. And it's just like, hey, by the way, all of your gear, we turned it into dust because it's fucking trash. And you don't even want it anymore. You need to get this other stuff and you'll go here and talk to this guy. You're like, oh, okay. Like, hey, you used to really focus on this number. Fuck that number. That number's trash. That's a trash number. The new number is the number. And then, like, you launch into another tutorial that's telling you, like, hey, that number, that's from 3 seasons ago. This is the 2 seasons ago number. Here's the new number. Anyway. And unlocking mods for weapons and loadout building and everything just felt like I don't want to. They had the, be like, this mod expires at the end of the season. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to touch it then because I'm going to play this game for a few hours and then probably not play it until next season. So spending points on my artifact or whatever the fuck is a gigantic waste of my time because I'm not playing enough of this. And so they've gone and they've unlocked all the mods for everybody and they're like, here, fine. And that's just better. I suspect that the game will still have plenty of mystery and other loot fun in it, to where they don't necessarily have to make the mods work that specific way. So that's cool. All of these changes, every time I read the changes that they're making to Destiny 2 this time around, I look at it and go like, yeah. This sounds like they're fixing a lot of the weird shit that I, as an occasional Destiny 2 player, experience every time I launch that game. And it's nice to feel heard, because so many of these games feel like they are just catering to the people that are fucking doing all the raids and all of the other stuff. And I just look at it and go like, that can't be the majority of your player base, right? Like, what percentage of the player base is like them all the way at the end of the progression? And what percentage is more like me, somewhere in the middle, going like, I just like the game. I think it's cool. I think the pyramid looks nice, and I like to shoot the men in the face. Or sometimes the stomach, because the robots, you have to shoot them in the stomach. I like this. That's what I want to do, is I want to find a new gun and go, this is not as good as the gun I had, but the number is higher, so I'm going to suffer through it anyway, because 20 minutes later, I know I'm going to get another gun, and maybe that one will be fucking sick. So, in conclusion, I am extremely excited for the future of Destiny 2. And I'm looking forward to playing that next week. That's next week. That is literally 7 days away that thing will come out. So yes. Big shakeup over at Firaxis. This is Polygon has recapped this stuff. Let's see. Jake Solomon, who's the creative director and lead designer over at Firaxis has been there for over 2 decades, is leaving the studio. He put out a screenshot of some text. But basically saying, hey, the pull quote that the quote that Polygon took is the good one. I loved designing tactical turn-based games, but it's time for other smarter people to push that space forward. My brain is on fire with a new dream. Time to go chase it. This is like maybe like a week or so after he tweeted something saying like, hey, Midnight Suns is exactly the game I wanted to make. Like, this is exactly the game that we were trying to make. We made the game. We made the game. We made the thing we wanted to make. And that was in conjunction with 2K having a financial call where they were out there saying like, yeah, Midnight Suns is not meeting sales expectations. And yeah, I don't know. You could try to read into that and all of that stuff, but the head of the studio also left. Steve Martin, the head of the studio, is also leaving. And he'd been there over 25 years. He's getting out there to, he's got a banjo tour to get into. They also took the time here alongside this to announce that they are working on the next Civilization game, whether that'll be like Civ 7 or, whatever they end up calling it. Man, that first XCOM game I thought was amazing. XCOM 2 is one of those situations where it's probably technically a better game, but I played most of my XCOM 2 at launch, and I remember it having kind of a rough launch, and that really colored my time with it quite a bit. To where I did not have a great time with XCOM 2. But the XCOM franchise is an incredible, I guess, 4 games. I mean, there are more than that, but let's just talk about the first 2 original XCOMs and then these 2 XCOMs and the other stuff. Play by email XCOM. That's the one for me. As much as I think that first XCOM remake, part of what makes it so amazing is that it does the thing of, hey, we've modernized a lot of things here. We have made a new game, but at the same time, like that game made me feel the way I felt when I played the original 2 XCOM games back in the 90s. And it's funny because if you actually try to compare them, you go like, oh man, the XCOM remake is obviously so much smoother and just a much smoother experience, and they have kept it difficult without making it crazy. Like those, you go back to those original games, they're fucking nuts. And the interfaces and stuff of like, I need to raise my guy up a level, and so I can see this and see that, you know, those things are kind of hard, especially in the second game. So XCOM 2 Terror from the Deep is a weird fucking game because it feels like a hack. I mean, it feels like an expansion pack for the first game in a lot of ways, because it feels like they took that game and bolted on water mechanics and said like, yeah, now you're underwater, and so you can just float up a level, and there are, you know, going to be 3 levels on this map or whatever, and you might not see the enemy unless you're on the same level as them, and whatever else. And the Terror from the Deep stuff, I liked it fine. It was not exciting because it was it is fucking difficult. The same way that Syndicate expansion, what American whatever the fuck it was, is fucked difficulty wise. I think XCOM 2 is kind of a lot harder to wrap your mind around because of the spatial concepts of fighting underwater that then they apply to this grid-based, turn-based combat game. It's a really weird thing. It's just a really weird thing. But UFO Unknown, that very first XCOM game, it came to PlayStation and stuff like that, but I played it on a PC on good old DOS. That's a game we'll certainly be talking about on the next episode of Game Boys to Men, when we do get into our kind of PC games of the early 90s and the multimedia era and the DOS to Windows 95 transition, and, you know, multimedia CD-ROMs, Dom DeLuise, all of these things. I loved that original XCOM game, and so when they said, hey, Firaxis, the Civ people, are going to make a new XCOM game, I was honestly a little worried at first. I was like, oh man, the Civ is, I don't really have a real love for the Civilization games. And I hope that they stick to enough of what people loved about original XCOM, and sure enough, they did. I think that those games are awesome. So, you know, hats off to Jake Solomon for sure, for running that ship, for creative directing through those games. And yeah, because that was some awesome stuff. I'm not a Midnight Suns fan, but, you know, that's just a game that is designed in such a way to not be up my alley. And so we've made a Marvel game, and also it's cards, and also it's, like, I'm good. I tried playing it. I'm okay. But people do seem to like it. And as such, you know, I'll be really interested to see where Jake Solomon pops up next and what type of game he wants to work on next. Like that's potentially very exciting. So we'll kind of see how that all pans out. Maybe I'll go to Blizzard. That's just a segue. Blizzard sounds like a fucking continuing the shit show continueth. I don't know what I don't know what the right transition is here. This is a real mess. The president of Blizzard Entertainment, Mike Ibarra, who you may remember was an Xbox for a good long time before all this, had a company-wide Q&A session, and left a bunch of people super pissed from the sounds of things. And a lot of detail. This sounds like when you look at the way this meeting has been presented by GameDeveloper.com, it sounds like they just got everybody together to be like, hey, here's 5 things you're gonna fucking hate. If you don't like it, leave. It's like, oh geez. You know, if you remember recently, there was a person at Blizzard who was, having to do employee reviews, and because they do stack ranking, it meant that someone had to be on the bottom, and that person on the bottom would not get a bonus or a raise, like that their career would be hampered. And so even if your entire team was working great, you still had to put someone on the bottom of your stack. It's a shitty way to do it. I have never had to do employee reviews that way at any point in my career. Thankfully, but I did have a situation a couple of times where, if you're rating people on a 1 to 5, if you're trying to give a lot of 5s, got some pushback about like, hey, wait a minute, why are all these people, are you sure? Like, there was a lot of like real like sorry for hiring people who are good at their fucking job, I guess. Why would we want that? Why would we want solid employees to work here? Anyway. So they did a Q&A and really just there's kind of a wide swath here of let's see. Blizzard made a decision to cut the profit sharing bonus to 58% of what people were anticipating, which did not go down super well, obviously, especially because the company had talked about like, hey, we're doing good. But you're going to get a little, somewhere around 60, you're going to get maybe half your bonus. That doesn't go down super well. There's a quote here from Ibarra saying something to the effect of, if you think that executives are making a lot of money and you aren't, you're living in a myth. And game developer says, in the context of the discussion, the statement is technically factual. Blizzard's decision to cut the profit sharing bonus to 58% does apply equally across all employees, executives included. Though maybe the executives have higher base pay. Maybe. I don't know. GameDeveloper.com tried to do a little bit of research here, and it sounds like that test analysts at Blizzard's Irvine County headquarters make as low as $22 per hour, which is about $45,000 a year, according to job posting website Indeed. When cross-referenced with the MIT's cost of living calculator, that barely meets the standard of a living wage in the high-cost region, where the cost of housing can run as high as 158% above the national average. And so, yeah, getting 58% of your bonus, also presuming that people that are higher up on the totem pole are probably eligible for a wider bonus to begin with, and that it's probably not equally split across every employee. I doubt that Mike Ybarra is out there trying to figure out, like, oh man, how am I going to get food in the house? The same way some of these other folks might. And then if that wasn't enough, they went and said like, oh, by the way, we're going to require all employees to resume working in the offices, at least in a hybrid capacity. And so that doesn't go down well, especially when perhaps you maybe hired some people who don't live in the area over the course of the pandemic. That maybe you hired people that don't live in Irvine. There's a couple. Okay, I'll just read this part from the game developer story. Again, this gamedeveloper.com. Ybarra reportedly did not provide any clear action plans to retain talent, though it was apparently shared elsewhere that Blizzard would open offices in new, unnamed locations to act as central hubs. So that may offload some of this stuff as like, hey, we're opening offices elsewhere, so you can go to one of those offices instead. Which is, that doesn't, I don't know. He did, however, reportedly say the following: at the end of the day, we want people to be happy. And if decisions about being happy don't align with where we're going and you won't be happy, then you'll have to do what will make you happy. Which sounds a lot like a way to say, if you don't like it, then you should quit. After publishing the article, Blizzard did send out some comment. We understand some people may not find this model ideal and that change is hard, but we're one of 90% of companies returning to the office this year, and we're committed to supporting teams in making the transition. They also reaffirmed that the company is continuing to honor the status of all remote workers, and exceptions on the return to office plan will be made for medical or religious reasons. We will make business decisions at times that not everyone will agree with, like any other business leader would with a team of over 4,500 individuals. Yeah, I guess. Seeing a lot of reports about the return to office stuff, you know, and gosh, if you think about the other stuff that is swirling around Blizzard in terms of like people trying to start unions and people trying, like it almost seems like they're trying to make this a harsher environment for their existing QA teams so that those people will leave instead of forming unions, and then they can just bring in new people, burn them out 2 years later, then they leave, you bring in another batch of, you know, here's your $22 an hour, burn them out, and keep going that way. And also, yes, the other thing that's happening with a lot of the return to office stuff is a lot of companies realizing that they are locked into a lease for 5 years, which that money's gone either way. You're not going to, you know, filling the building up isn't going to necessarily make that money. I don't know. I think it's you know, if things are working well with people working remotely, I would probably stick to that. And so if they're coming off a quarter where they're like, things are going good, I'm like, okay, well, maybe keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of this seems like a way to get a certain swath of people to quit the company. That's what this looks like to me. But you know, they're smart enough to be well aware of what the reaction to those sorts of moves are going to be. And they're like, well, we'll lose some talent, but hey, you know, if we do that, then we don't have to lay people off. Hooray. If we do that, we don't have to pay them unemployment because they'll just quit. Hooray. Yeah. You know, they got quotes from people there saying, you know, it feels wrong. Nobody asked for this. No one knows where this came from. This is not the Blizzard we've worked at for the last year and a half. And that it feels very, very sudden and that people are pissed. More so than, you know, I think a lot of these conversations are happening across a lot of different companies right now, both inside and outside of the gaming industry. And I do think that there is some value in occasionally getting people together in person, whether that's, you know, 1 day a week or whatever. I don't know what the right number is. That's probably different for every team, right? But yeah, I don't know. This in a situation where you've got stuff that's like working relatively well, to just go and fill up offices for reasons that seem highly unclear just seems mean, a little mean-spirited. I don't know. There's a lot. We're going to hit a reckoning point, I guess, in a lot of cases where, you know, office real estate, like as these leases expire and companies, you know, if companies do say, hey, we're going all remote and we're staying that way, or people leave and they just start an all remote company and they don't go rent a building and everything else, you know, then that'll be a lot of unfilled space. You know, the same way San Francisco seemed like a weird ghost town last time I was there. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems, some of this stuff just seems needless to me. I don't know. And then, you know, it's hard to like reconcile some of this stuff with, like, obviously, you know, Microsoft is trying to buy the whole thing. And so you wonder, like, are these things that Microsoft would be in favor of? Or, I mean, obviously Activision has to behave like they control themselves. They can't, like, legally, they can't go have Microsoft calling shots like this. The last company I worked for, and I've seen some public stuff around this. Like, you can't just go live anywhere and work for a company because of the way that taxes are done. And so you would have companies that would be set up, and Bungie was one of the companies that was like this. They're like, hey, we're cleared to have people live in 11 different states, and we're working on more. So if you live in this state and you want to work remotely, you can do this, and so if you were to move to a state where the company was not set up to do business, then the tax stuff got a lot more complicated. And I think that some folks maybe ended up in some situations like that where they moved somewhere else, and then the company went, wait, you did what? I was like, yeah, everyone got clearance to do this. This was not a mystery. It's weird that you are fucking bringing it up now like it is some fucking mysterious thing, but yes, this is what we've done. The fuck is wrong with you? Anyway, speaking of weird shit, remember the Polymega? It is a emulation-focused box that is designed to take real discs and real cartridges. The Polymega is, okay, it looks like it's $550. And I have not looked at the Polymega in a while. It's some people have had pre-orders for this thing for years and still have not gotten one. But it's the sort of thing where they sell different modules and you can plug in your different real controllers. But it is in this emulation-based thing. I want to say it's running... Is it running a fork of Mednafen? I forget what the situation is, but it's like... It is an emulator box, and it will play PlayStation, Saturn, TurboGrafx CD, Neo Geo CD, Mega CD games. And then you can buy modules that will, let it support different cartridge-based systems and use those controllers and everything. Anyway, it's this thing that, I have not seen one in person. I remember years ago, Peter Brown came back from a meeting having seen one, and he said, this thing actually seems pretty good. But I have not seen one. Anyway, like I said, they have not fulfilled all of their orders for it yet. And I guess maybe to kind of have a different product out there that they maybe can sell while they're trying to fill all these orders, they're going to release something called the Polymega app for free. They have said it will come to all of your devices, according to Video Games Chronicle. And players will be able to use any standard disk drive to rip their CD-based games and then use the Polymega emulators to play them on PC or mobile. Which, if I'm not mistaken, that's just an emulator. I can show you a lot of those that you can download on a lot of different devices right now. And they're also going to have a subscription service for it that will add premium features like cloud storage, cheat codes, an audio player, and the ability to apply third-party patches to games. With translation patches being the example that Video Games Chronicle mentions here. I can show you software that can apply third-party patches to your games, and you don't have to subscribe to a service to do it. And if you don't have access to a disk drive, the company will be selling something called the Polymega Remix, which sounds like it is a USB CD-ROM drive you can use to rip discs, but also adds support for the cartridge modules. So if you were to buy the cartridge modules, I guess you could plug them in. They're going to launch a closed beta for the app in March, and anyone who's ordered the Polymega will be able to access it then. That's a weird... And so, yes, the last little bit here of the story here is that Polymega says there's very long lead times for components on the motherboard, and that's why a lot of base units have not been manufactured and distributed, and why they're having trouble getting it out to people that have ordered it and maybe had some of those pre-orders sitting around for years and years. So this, again, sounds like them trying to take some elements of their experience and put it into an app instead of a device. I felt that the device seemed like a thing that didn't necessarily need to exist already. And so the idea of then turning that back into an app and then selling a CD-ROM drive, a USB CD-ROM drive for ripping discs, seems crazy. Also, if I remember correctly, it rips them all into very specific formats. It does not rip them into formats that you can then use on other emulators. Because they are trying to design this in such a way that prevents software piracy. And so I don't. The whole thing seems kind of nuts to me. There's a lot of other options out there for you if you want to play the games on those platforms, not on those platforms. I'd be curious because they do talk about coming to all your devices. I would be curious to see what they end up doing with an iOS version, because obviously emulation on iOS is one of those things that's, you know, you can sideload stuff and you can work around Apple's different shit and install your alt stores and, you know, whatever else. But, you know, it's hard to have that experience on a default iOS device without jumping through some hoops. And so I'd be curious to see if they end up doing anything there, or if it just doesn't come to iOS. That seems likely. Polymega Remix, $150 for a CD-ROM, for a USB CD-ROM drive. Maybe it's a DVD-ROM drive. I don't know. It doesn't actually say, because obviously it only supports CD-based systems, so one would presume it's going to be a CD-ROM drive. You know what would be cool for me and for a handful of people out there dedicated to accurate preservation of CD-ROM based games is if they made something that dumped discs in a very accurate and redump friendly way. Because right now, if you want to dump CD-ROM games in an accurate way, you got to buy some old Plextor device, some old Plextor brand CD-ROM drive, and use that to do those dumps, because it's got to support the right type of C8, D8, I forget what it is. I bought one. I bought an external CD-ROM drive a handful, like 4 years ago or something. Because I'm like, well, I need to dump these discs, and used it on the handful of discs that I had that were not already in the redump database. And I'm like, okay, well, now I've got these just in case. And yeah. It'd be nice if someone put out something that was a new device that could do that. That would be cool. This is probably not that. In our last story, Mick Gordon, music maker extraordinaire for such video games as Doom, has announced that he did the music for Atomic Heart, which is a game that I guess is out today. He has announced that he's going to donate the money he was paid for his work on Atomic Heart to a Ukrainian fund. Or I guess he said, I believe this Polygon article does say where it's going to go. Yes, the Australian Red Cross's Ukraine crisis. He is Australian. That's why it's the Australian Red Cross. Australian Red Cross's Ukraine crisis appeal in support of the people of Ukraine who are heroically defending their country against aggression. I believe it's important to support pro-peace organizations, stand up for what is right, and to help those in need, especially during times of crisis. It goes unsaid in what Mick Gordon has written here. He didn't necessarily connect all of the dots on this. But there's something potentially going on with Atomic Heart. The developer, Mundfish, Polygon has statements from them saying, "We want to assure you that Mundfish is a developer and studio with a global team focused on an innovative game and is undeniably a pro-peace organization against violence against people. Against violence against people. We do not comment on politics or religion." An article came out basically saying, kind of pointing out a couple of things. One, that they had on their website what they say is an old privacy policy that indicates that they can give their user data to the FSB, which is Russian, kind of the successor to the KGB, I guess, in some ways. I guess that's that the right shorthand way to refer to the FSB. And that that Munfish has investors who are basically Russian oligarchs, sanctioned in some cases. And so that's not great. An article on AIN Capital kind of tries to connect the dots here. Where their claims here are: the game is developed by Munfish, which claims to be international with an office in Cyprus, but it is Russian. In fact, it is sponsored by Russian investors, including an ex-Gazprom top manager with close ties to Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska and the sanctioned VTB Bank. Therefore, it's no wonder that Munfish never commented on the war in Ukraine and didn't condemn Russia either. In a recent tweet, developers stated they do not comment on politics. And yeah. So that doesn't sound great. That doesn't sound like something that I want to install on a PC. I don't know. That's, it's out on Game Pass, and maybe like, hey, if they are collecting data, it'd be harder for them to collect it from a closed system like an Xbox. Maybe. But also, is money from Atomic Heart going to someone with ties to Gazprom and a Russian oligarch? That doesn't seem fucking good. Everyone's going to draw their own lines, I guess, but yeah, that doesn't sound very fucking cool to me. I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out. I don't know. A lot of dirty lineage across this industry these days. I don't know if you noticed. Nintendo, what is it, like Saudi Arabia increased their stake in Nintendo pretty recently. Obviously, there's the SNK stuff. It's much to think about. The 30th anniversary of Star Fox. I don't really have much other news on that front, but 30 years of Star Fox. That's pretty wild. I remember, seeing Star Fox for the first time when they brought it to CES. This is something we did talk about this on Game Boys to Men pretty recently, because we were talking about this era of Nintendo. And for as much as I like to shit upon games like Donkey Kong Country and the SNES version of Killer Instinct and the stuff they were doing with pre-rendered graphics and trying to present it alongside and trying to say, like, you don't need a 3D video game console. We've got it right here. Look at Donkey Kong. And how that was a grotesque warping of facts and whatever else. And, Star Fox was the real deal. It was, real-time rendered polygonal video game. Like, the frame rate, not awesome when you think back on it now. But at the time, even if you had seen some games like that, and I remember at the time thinking, like, this looks like they took that old Star Wars arcade game and colored in the polygons. This is pretty cool. And they've got these fun puppety oddballs here going dib 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 dab, and that's fine. And Star Fox was pretty cool. It came out pretty late in the SNES's life cycle, so I didn't play a ton of it. And I always view it as one of, and it's not the case, right? Because the SNES went on for years afterwards. But in my head, Star Fox is one of the last great SNES games. Before other hardware started coming out, it wouldn't be too much longer before the Saturn was out in Japan, and you know, you had all this other stuff happening, and you know, everything was moving again in terms of hardware, and you know, the PlayStation wouldn't be too far behind, and you know, at some point you understand why Star Fox 2 didn't come out, right? You're like, okay, yeah, there's kind of you understand why. But seeing it at the time, there was really nothing like it, especially on a Super Nintendo. And so seeing the same 16-bit system that played, you know, Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Super Punch-Out, Super Smash TV, all the hits, you know, do that. You're like, man, that's awesome. And it led to this, you know, at the time, it really, it was kind of being presented, and I'm conflating a couple of years of time here because, you know, obviously we get into the FX2 chip and some of the games that ran on that, and but at the time you looked at it and were like, man, this seems like something that Nintendo is incredibly serious about, and this is going to be their thing for the next however long. All these 3D games, and you're driving and you're doing this, and then somewhere along the way they had FX Fighter, which Argonaut developed. They also did Star Fox. And Argonaut developed a fighting game, a polygonal fighting game that was meant to be released on the SNES. It was not. A DOS version of it did come out, like kind of well after it was being shown, if I remember correctly. But it was kind of contemporaneous around with your stunt race effects and you know, even just like some of the other stuff happening at the time, like Rise of the Robots or something, you know. And FX Fighter was something they were showing. They were showing it running on a PC, but saying like, also, this is going to use the FX2 chip, and this is coming to SNES. And I remember being like, oh, fucking cool. All right, well, this game seems like it absolutely sucks, but I mean, you know, that's pretty crazy that they can do this on a SNES. And of course, the SNES version would go on to be completely canceled. I'm looking here. I guess this would have been the very last CES. According to Wikipedia, they showed FX Fighter at Winter CES 1995. So that's going to be basically 6-ish months before the release, before E3, before the very first E3. And the same year the PlayStation came out, you know? And yes, GTE Entertainment, GTE being like the phone company, because everyone had their interactive division back then. They were somehow in on this as well. And yeah, I'm trying to look here, okay, at the lineage, because, okay, so FX Fighter came out on the PC in June of 95. And then in November of 96, they put out something called FX Fighter Turbo, which is a sequel with new characters, moves, environments, costumes, special effects, network play, Windows support, and support for the S3 graphics chipset. And it had fatalities, which the previous game, I guess, did not have. I really want to see this game running now. Because I remember, you know, and I was always into fighting games, so I always was gravitating towards like, they got a fighting game, all right. You know, this is Virtua Fighter is out and about at this point, and so the idea of a SNES fighting game that looks like this seemed ridiculous and impossible, and sure enough, it was. But then it eventually came out on DOS, and I am tempted to say that I maybe reviewed FX Fighter for the PC on GameSpot. That might have been something I did for them in a freelance capacity, because I was not, well, I don't know. I started there in October of 96, so that would be closer to the release of FX Fighter Turbo. Hugo Foster did it? Okay. There was some PC fighting game that I remember I reviewed for. It was like my first review for the PC side of GameSpot. Maybe it was like Last Bronx. They did a version of Last Bronx for the PC. I forget. I kind of want to go back and see these, because to me, all of this is kind of coming from the same place, right? You know, Star Fox and Stunt Race FX and FX Fighter are all kind of like in this same miasma of just like, yeah, I don't know, we got a math chip we're going to cram into these cartridges and it'll push some polygons, so we're going to do this. And obviously, you know, Argonaut did it just like they did Star Fox. And so that's when I think about Star Fox, like I don't think so much about the game anymore. Like the game's fine. It's good. Like I said, it's like one of the last great SNES games. But it just reminds me of this era and like this whole push into 3D and trying to figure out like, how do we even make that work? How do we make this work on the current technology? How is this something we could even consider doing? And how can we make any of this stuff happen? And you know, a lot of that happened across multiple platforms, right? And so, you know, this is again 95. This is happening as the PlayStation is out in Japan. This thing is coming out for DOS, and the idea of it starting its life as a SNES game and just all this, it's so weird. It's so weird, but there you go. Congratulations to Star Fox for making it to 30 years. Maybe they should make more. I don't know. I you know, I think Star Fox is a really good game. And then they kept making them. And yeah. Maybe I don't know that they necessarily I don't know that I ever need another Star Fox game. I'll say that much. Because so much of like Star Fox's reason for existing, which is a French phrase, was the polygonal nature of it, was the, you know, the way the tech end of that, the idea of Fox McCloud and Slippy and, you know, like all these other characters and everything existing and continuing to exist, especially now in an era where like, oh yeah, polygons, yeah, we've got those. I got polygons on my phone I can show you, blow your fucking mind. I don't know, like it's just something about that has kind of hung over every other Star Fox game that has come afterwards, with the exception of Star Fox 2, I guess, where like Star Fox 2, I remember seeing that at, I guess, what would have been one of the last CESs as well, and being like, yeah, this does look better than regular Star Fox, and you can turn into a tank? Okay, fuck, crazy. All right, sure. Shit, man, that's nuts. And then that getting canceled and being like, all right, well, no one wants a Super Nintendo anyway anymore, so I guess that makes sense. But to me, I guess that is probably what has hung over all of the other Star Fox games. I know people have this like deep, endearing love for Star Fox 64 that I just never understood. Like that game, I thought it was so dull. But anyway, and then that the dinosaur planet, that eventually became Star Fox Adventures or whatever they called it. Like, this is just a weird. Have we reached a point in time? Has enough time passed since that last Star Fox game that people seem to not love? Do you think the vast majority of Star Fox, like people who are aware of Star Fox, just think of it now as, that's that guy from Smash Brothers. He does the up attack. He does the thing. He shoots. He has a gun. Like, with Ness, of course. I mean, yes, everyone knows Ness as the guy from Smash Brothers. Like, it's weird in a way that like now so many Fire Emblem games are coming out all the time, because I would have said Marth was 2000% in that same bucket, and now there are a billion Fire Emblem games all over again, and so maybe now people know who Marth is in a more original way. Yeah, no, that's yeah, Captain Falcon's another good one of those. You know, because Captain Falcon is barely in F-Zero. You know, it's not like Captain Falcon is like a major character in the F-Zero games. I know there was some stuff that came out in Japan that was a little more story based, but yeah, the rich fucking backstory for Captain Falcon, I don't know. Yeah, F-Zero is cool. F-Zero is super cool. It always was. F-Zero 64, probably one of the top 5 N64 games. F-Zero X. Was that what they call it? Anyway. Hey, how about we get into some emails? Huh? podcast@guard.bike is the email address for you to send in your emails if you want them to be read on this podcast. If you want to make it to the big time, then send your emails to podcast@guard.bike. Answering a question from the chat first. Did I buy a new one? No, because they are like $550. I could buy a plate. Okay, what are you going to buy? PlayStation VR2 or a new one? You can only get one. I might, I really want to see a new on. I really want to see new on games running, but I don't think I'm going to buy one. I thought about buying an FM Towns Marty recently also because there's a new ODE potentially coming out for that thing. But those are like $800. And that's stupid. Anyway. Anyway, podcast@guard.bike is the email address to send in your emails. Evan from Harrogate in the UK says, with the quality of games that are part of Game Pass, I find myself wondering what on earth is the deal with the offerings on Games with Gold. For the past year or so, the quality of games offered has been middling to really poor. I can honestly say I haven't played most of the games on there for more than 5 minutes, with the odd standout, Coffee Talk, I really enjoyed. Is there a reason that Games with Gold tend to be more budget games or of poor quality as of late? Yeah, man, you're right. And I think that this is something that they are doing because it's part of the legacy of what their subscription offering was. You know, Games with Gold is something that existed before Game Pass. And so it's part of what they sold everybody on. I feel like they are overdue to really take a look at what their subscription offering is and what the different like tiers get, you know, like if they're still going to do Xbox Live Gold as a thing that exists separately from Game Pass, like why do they do that, and why can't they merge them, and like why, you know, most of the time, honestly, I'll say I forget to even redeem the Games with Gold, because they don't always do an amazing job of promoting them. I get an email from PlayStation every month, which is actually nice of them, near the end of the month that says, hey, there's still time to claim your PlayStation Plus games for the month. And then I go, fuck. And I turn on my PlayStation and I go add, you know, like it'll be like 3 games. I'll probably already own 2 of them. And I'll take the third one and go, all right, yeah, I'll add that to my library. And okay, all right. And that's that. So I never do that on the Xbox. I always forget to do that with the Xbox. And Pasty Mofo asks, why can't we just auto add to library? It's 2023. Because they pay money for every person who adds it to the library. They do not want to automatically add the game to everyone's library, because then they are paying for every single subscriber. That's why you have to jump through that hoop, because then they know this person redeemed that game. That means we have to pay someone $3 or whatever the fucking cut is. I have no idea. And so that is why that works that way. Does it suck? Yes, of course it sucks. You should just get the games. But no, you don't. So anything that's like claim here, and some of the Xbox perks that generate one of those 5x5 codes of theirs, you have to then enter and hit this and do this and jump through like 5 different pages on the Xbox Dash to redeem your thing. Like, sometimes it seems like they're just making it a hassle because they don't want you to do it. I don't know. And yes, if you're doing it on the Xbox, that then automatically starts a download. And most of the time, I don't want to download those games right then and there. So I have to go in to my apps and whatevers and then go, all right, cancel this download. I just keep patching Call of Duty or whatever the fuck you're doing. And yeah, so I feel like the Xbox subscription offering is murky and weird. And I think that there are aspects of it that they could streamline. But if they are making a good amount of money on each one of those tiers, they probably don't want to fuck it up. Because I look at it and go like, you should just sell Game Pass and not the other thing. And if you have multiple versions of Game Pass, you do the PC, you do the console, you do both. Like, you have that be the delineation. And then just have online play tied to that. Or, hey, just make online play free again? I don't know. Are they really losing? Like, if you think about it, like I have to imagine that most of the time on Xbox spent playing online video games. I would bet that most of them, most of that time is going to games that are available free to play. With the exception of, obviously, Call of Duty is a weird thing where Warzone is free, but there's a paid But what are people playing? Fortnite, Halo, Rocket League. I don't know. And so if most of the time is going to games that you're already letting people play for free anyway, because you allow people to play free-to-play games, yes, Apex Legends, of course. If you allow people to play free-to-play games without having Xbox Live Gold, then what is Xbox Live Gold really for? Is it just a wall that makes it harder for people to play a game like a Windjammers 2, for example? That, a lot of these games need all the help they can get at having a player base. And so, having like the Xbox Live Gold thing, yes, it seems like it's for people that play Call of Duty and Madden. That's a great, yes, Red Jago. Yes, that is exactly correct. That the Xbox Live Gold is a barrier for people who want to play NBA 2K and whatever the mainstream big games like that are. And so, honestly, they probably do okay on those in a way that that justifies them having that paid tier for online access. It must, right? Because otherwise they would just get rid of it and fold it into Game Pass or try to, like whatever. It just, like the Xbox Live subscription offerings feel like they were cobbled together over the years because they were, right? Because Xbox Live Gold existed this way, and there used to be Xbox Live Silver, and then they did that, and everything's silver and like this, and they just kind of twisted and turned every way they could, and then they came out with Game Pass, and that's a whole separate subscription, and you can bundle it with this other thing if you want, but you don't have to, and you could do this, and I think if you took all of those features and took all of those perks and you just put them on a spreadsheet and blew up the entire subscription service and started over from scratch, you could have something that probably just made a lot more like common sense. But there's probably not a ton of great reasons to do that right now. I think it's working well enough as is. It's not that confusing to that many people, I would guess. Maybe it is. I don't know. I think the PlayStation tiers on PlayStation Plus are also similarly fucking weird. And as someone who is subscribed to the highest tier of PlayStation Plus, that seems like a bad value. I don't feel like I'm getting anything out of it. I feel like they added a small handful of games and they don't update it enough, and I don't care about demos. And yeah, it doesn't feel like, like it doesn't feel like an awesome list of games. And well, I guess like it's the sort of thing that maybe they could get away with having 2 tiers of just like, here's your regular base level PlayStation Plus, and then here's the one that gets you their kind of Game Pass style equivalent of like, here's the subscription service games. And then at some point, decide if you still want to do monthly games for PlayStation Plus base level members, or if you just want to move everything onto the subscription service and say, hey, the money we spent trying to get these games on the monthly thing, we instead now spend trying to get bigger and better games on this other tier. And I don't know, maybe that's a shitty way to go. But I just, I don't know. These services, again, they've just been built up over time, and it's hard. Everything is like this, right? You think this is hard. Try running a website for a decade. The number of things that you build on top of other things, and that you build on top of those other things, and then you reach a point where there's only a very small handful of people internally who know exactly why those decisions were made, and why if you were to alter one of them in some way, a lot of other things would come crashing down. Like and you end up in a situation where you're just like, it's like you probably, the right thing to do is to yank the whole thing down and start rebuilding something from scratch. But that takes a lot of effort as well. It's a whole thing. The internet's a fucking mess. It's a house of cards. Games with gold is no exception. Chris from Alabama says, Deltron 3030, one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time? Sure. It's an amazing record. Yeah, it's a fantastic album. Greatest of all time? Sure, I guess. Like that's a large list. If we're talking top 10 hip-hop albums of all time, no. If we're talking some kind of unspecified number of albums and saying the greatest hip hop albums of all time, then yes, definitely. But no, that's an awesome record. And there are aspects of it I like more than Dr. Octagon and Dr. Octagon Ecologist. Though Octagon Ecologist came first, as they say. And that's an incredible album. Oh my God, the Dr. Octagon record. But yeah, Deltron 3030, that first album is amazing. The Event 2 or whatever, no thank you. Not a good record. A disappointing record from top to bottom. There's maybe like one track on that second Deltron record that I'd be like, okay. But gosh, yikes. Not a comeback that should have happened. I also felt the same way about all the other Dr. Octagon stuff. Whether it was the leaked, like unofficial, whatever, Dr. Octagon 2, which is a pretty fucking whack record. And then the official, what was the actual one? Not Nogatko Road. Which is also, but is that what Moose Bumps, right? Yeah, there's tracks on Moose Bumps that are all right, but not in the same way that Dr. Octagon Ecologist was. Holy shit. That record at that time, this is like 1996. This is when I first started working at GameSpot. And Ron Doolin, who was running reviews on the PC side of GameSpot, and I believe Tim Sodi, who was in the fucking Champs, and he was writing reviews and I think reviews and previews on the PC side of GameSpot. I believe Tim was also big on this, but I don't remember for sure. But it was Dr. Octagon and then Kool Keith's solo record, sex style. Oh, and I remember being introduced to those records by Ron. Like, you need to fucking hear that, like, and just being blown the fuck away. Yes, no, there were two members of the Champs worked at GameSpot early on. And yeah. And yeah, man, just the chorus of keep it real, represent what? My nuts. Like, that's the whole chorus to that song on that Kool Keith record. It just perfect. Absolute perfection. That whole, yeah. I might take there are tracks on Sex Style I would take over tracks on the Dr. Octagon album for sure. But those two as a like side A, side B of Kool Keith's weird fucking thing, it doesn't get much better than that. Dr. Doom would come out not long after that, and it just wasn't, I mean, there's some good tracks on that, but listen, the Dr. Doom record is not super awesome. Anyway. Matt from Columbus writes in and says, the re-release of Metroid Prime got me thinking about my relationship with the Metroid series as a whole. Somehow, the first Metroid game I ever played was Metroid Prime Hunters for DS. At the time, playing a handheld competitive online first-person shooter with essentially mouse-look aiming was mind-blowing. With that in mind, when I tried Metroid Prime, I found it boring and sluggish to control and have never even played one of the side-scrollers. My personal framing of Metroid is still somehow closer to Quake than Castlevania. Have you ever come at a series or game at such an orthogonal approach that has seriously affected your perception like this? Huh. Probably. I can't, I'm trying to... I'm trying to think if I have any versions of this. I don't know that I have one, but that's an interesting, man, Metroid Prime Hunters is a really weird place to enter the Metroid franchise. I remember when that game came out, thinking, I did not like that game at all. And even the novelty of here's a competitive first-person shooter on a handheld like the DS, that was not novel enough to kind of like, I just was like, yeah, no, thank you. You know, the first Kirby game I played might have been Kirby's Pinball Land. But and I love that game because it's amazing. It's a great game. The Kirby Pinball game is really a tremendous game, but you know, not really the same as some of those. Not really the same as a lot of those Kirby games. But I think honestly my favorite Kirby games are probably Kirby's Pinball Land and Kirby Tilt and Tumble. Like, the Kirby platformers are good, but I don't know that I have like an endearing love for them. And it's probably for that reason, if I had to guess. The first Kirby game came out so late on that platform that I'd already moved on, and I didn't see it on Game Boy or anything like that until years later. And so I didn't play the first Kirby games when they were new. And so that the Kirby franchise is probably a weird one for me. Let's see here. Harold Forrest writes in and says, with the rise of AI assistants in the news lately, I keep finding myself thinking back on Peter Molyneux's experiment known as Project Milo for the Xbox Kinect. Part virtual pet, part life sim, Milo was a digital 14-year-old boy that could be directly interacted with by the player through the Kinect camera. Demonstrations from Milo suggested he was capable of having back and forth conversations, interpreting player drawings, and even reading facial emotions. I remember being downright blown away by these demonstrations and was convinced that this would be the future of gaming and even technology as a whole. Fast forward nearly 15 years later, and Milo was never heard from again. Reflecting on where we're currently at with this tech and where we were back then, the entire pitch immediately comes across as bogus and something I can't believe I fell for. What was your take on Milo at the time? Did you ever buy into the idea, or did it always seem like a pipe dream? Did you or anyone you know ever try out the Milo demo? Was there any actual demo to begin with? Yeah, Molyneux. Peter Molyneux is really good at being Peter Molyneux. And he has been for a very long time, when you think about it. Peter Molyneux is probably someone I might have said, hey, he's one of the, I forget why I was thinking about this recently. Like, who's the greatest UK game developer? Which is nonsense, because games are made by teams, not people, and there's a lot of other reasons why it's crazy. But I think just in the context of, I think it was when I was reading that Jeff Minter interview, I was like, man, Jeff Minter, yeah. That dude's fucking awesome. I like the way, like, go read that Eurogamer interview with Jeff Minter, because it's fascinating to hear him talk about Space Giraffe and why he thinks it's, like in a lot of ways the best game he's ever made. And I remember reviews being very divisive on Space Giraffe at the time. And even I myself, like I as much as I liked Space Giraffe and appreciated it, I don't know that I think it's, well, I don't know that I think it's his best game, I guess I would say. It's interesting because it is this backwards take on Tempest, this kind of reverse Tetris that forces, or reverse Tempest that forces a different type of aggression out of the player. And it's like fascinating for that reason, but I don't know. But he talks about in that interview wanting to make a sequel to Space Giraffe, which is, I would very much be interested in seeing. Anyway, the Milo demo, I think most of us, so I don't think I was there live when they showed it. I think I was watching on a stream from the booth at E3 or something like that. I don't know that I went to that thing firsthand. I remember, was this the same year that they had the capes? All the weird, oh, and I guess this, okay. It says E3 2003. Really? 2003? No. Okay, 2009. That makes more sense. So 2009, we were back at CBS at that point. No, we weren't. No, we weren't. Not in 2009. I remember that was probably the year that we had the weird rental space and all our no. Anyway, I remember thinking it seemed like a scam. And I did not get to try it myself, but I believe that was, anyway, I believe I bailed on this press conference to go do something else. I think we went to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles instead of going to this press conference. No, this wasn't the same year as everyone wearing the weird the light up capes, right? That was the year that we bailed on it. Once we saw the capes, we were like, you want to just go get something to eat? And a lot of us just bounced. Anyway. I remember hearing everything about the Milo demo, from like, no, it's totally like a Charles Martinet as Mario situation, that like there's someone behind the curtain that is actually playing the role of Milo the entire time, and that it's all super fucking fake. And that they wouldn't get specific about what the hell it was. And so they were being really shifty about it. and every report was around like, yeah, this isn't a real thing. Like but it's a tantalizing look at the future of, and so I don't think anyone looked at it in terms of hey, this is a real thing right now. I think it was more like, hey, this is where they're headed, and there was no reason to think that they wouldn't like get there because you weren't really sure what there really was. It's such an ambiguous thing that like now when you look at where we are with AI assistants and all this other crap, it's a lot easier to look back on that tech-wise and be like, oh man, there's no way that those interactions could ever have been as rich as they were trying to make it seem. And so what the hell was that thing anyway? And so, yeah, I don't know. The whole thing seemed like it was kind of a scam, but not maliciously so. Because you see a lot of things that are going to be, especially, like, I know Harold here has been doing things in the video game industry for a number of years now. So I think he's probably aware of just like, hey, you see a lot of things that are not quite there or things that are, hey, this is where we'd like to get it to, but it's not there yet. And so we've kind of presented, here's what we think this thing will be when it's done. This, the far-fetchedness of this demo is ridiculous in a way that you go like, hey, the Kinect and the Xbox 360 is never, these items are never going to be powerful enough to drive this experience. And I think everyone involved in making it must have known that by then, right? And yet they still let Molyneux go out there and do this. And so I think if they had done this in a way of just like, here's our far-flung vision of the future, and presented it that way, then maybe that would have been different. Instead, it was just like, and that's, I wonder if that's how they thought about making it, right? Because that's always something that you see at CES. Of just like, here's this crazy prototype, here's this weird concept, here's this thing it's never going to be, it's like concept cars, Here's the thing that's never going to come to market, but it's something that may inform where we're headed or something that might give you a hint about where we want to get to someday. But I think the video game industry is incapable of taking tech demos in that wide of a way, and they don't present them that way either. To the credit of the press, at no point was Microsoft saying that sort of thing, right? So if they had said, hey, obviously this is just a first-gen product, and, it runs on an Xbox 360. But we think somewhere down the line, if we have these types of motion sensing cameras in the home and this and that, we could do this. Maybe you could have an experience, something like this. And they have this, ridiculous canned interaction with this Milo thing. That would have been fine. Because you would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, they're thinking big. You would come away from that going, they're thinking very big about this camera technology, and they're thinking about all the different things they can do, not just in the next 3 years with games, but in the next 20 years, 30 years with virtual assistants and smart appliances or whatever, whatever you would want to call it. And I think that would have been received much differently, and it would have been received in a much more positive way because people would have gone like, hey, this is a direction that Microsoft thinks could be big for a long time. This is why they're investing so much into Project Natal, because they think that it can change everything about the home and all of this virtual, like all of this. Out of the chat here, for those of us too young, how were those old N64 and PlayStation 1 demos presented? More tech demo or more this is what you'll play? Different games in different phases of development were shown differently. This was at the time when a lot of you saw a lot of games that were in active development at that point, I'll say. You saw a lot of builds of games that crashed all over the place and things that were unpolished and things that weren't optimized. And hey, this frame rate is shit, but like obviously it's shit because the game's not close to done. And And publishers were a lot more willing to show that stuff off to the press. Because by and large, at that time, most of the press had been around long enough or was well educated enough to understand these games are not done. And so you would have some situations where if you're presenting at a show like E3, you would take a build of the game, polish it up, you would do your vertical slice, you would do your like, hey, this is the level we're building for the demo we're eventually going to put on a magazine disc anyway, so it behooves us to get it done and get it running right and get it running well and get it not crashing and so on. And so that sort of stuff would also be made. And so you would have these polished up demos of games that you would see sometimes. But nowadays you don't see, like by and large, the press doesn't have the same level of access to those sorts of games anymore. We used to get just discs in the mail all the time that were just like, here's a preview build of this. And sometimes they would be the situation where it's like, hey, it's all, you know, the level in here is really polished up and it runs well, and this is indicative of a final quality. And sometimes you would get one and say like, hey, here's this build of this game. It's going to load to a text shell, and you can pick one of 5 things off the menu, and 3 of the levels work and 2 don't. And you can take some screenshots of it, but please don't take video of this build of the game because it's fucked. And I think that, you know, like, again, it was a situation where the people on the receiving end of those builds understood what that meant. And it could be like, hey, you know, right now it's, well, previews were not written in a very negative way then, you know, I'll say. But I don't think there was anything wrong in saying like, hey, there's still work to be done on this game. It needs optimization, but you know, if it gets there, this is looking cool. This is doing this. And I thought that was a fine way for them to show games. But now, you know, we have these situations where something in a trailer that gets cut from the final game results in people going like, we should have a class action lawsuit about the Spider-Man puddles. This is unacceptable. Have you seen the lighting in this Dark Souls? What a downgrade. And so everyone has to be so skittish and careful about everything they put out now. It really sucks. It really sucks because everything is so much more locked down now. And everyone is so skittish about showing anything because invariably people who don't understand how game development, and no one should have to understand how game development works, to be fair. But then to have people come back around and be like, this is misrepresented, it's like, no, come on. No one involved in that process was making something that they were like, we know we're going to have to cut this out, but it's going to look sick in this demo or sick in this trailer or sick in this, you know, like everyone is making those things going like, this is stuff we hope is going to make its way into the final game. And oh, turns out as part of our optimization process, we had to make some changes to this rendering and these puddles maybe don't look as great as they did before. And that's fucking life in the big city, baby. That's life when you're developing video games. And everyone who's been around that understands that, goes like, yeah, man, fucking, it's a miracle this game shipped at all. What the fuck? But, yeah. So it's a bummer. I don't know. You know, the now previews are much more tightly controlled. If they're given at all, hands-on discs, you know, it's at a point where, by and large, most of the press doesn't need a debug console anymore. You know? You kind of just don't need to have one anymore because no one is sending out preview builds willy-nilly that need a debug console to run. You know, usually it's like, oh, hey, we're going to give you early access to the beta that we're putting out to everyone who pre-ordered the game, and you'll play it 3 days early, but it's also the same thing the public's about to play in 3 days. So, hey. And, you know, you go to something like an E3, it's a little different situation where you're like, okay, we're playing a build of a game, but like those have usually been polished up. It's why developers, you know, I think a lot of them don't like E3 is because they have to crunch for a fucking E3 demo. The number of, like, think about the number of overtime hours that Naughty Dog had to put in just to make a really sick fucking E3 trailer, and how slash and burn a lot of that development probably was just to get that thing looking good right then, right there, even if it's not stuff that's going to be like, oh, the methods we used to get this up and running are not going to be methods that apply to the development of the full game, but we have to get this demo running well by Thursday or we're fucked. Or Monday, Tuesday, whatever it is. Think about the hours burned on that. And you have to think, like, is that worth it? Probably not. Maybe. Did that translate? I think in the case of Naughty Dog specifically, I think you could probably say, hey, you know, those impressive show demos probably led to an uptick in interest, an uptick in pre-orders. Like, there's probably metrics you could go to and say, we did this and then our numbers went here. So we can back this out into revenue in a way that we're pretty satisfied with, even if you now have to go rip all that work out and do it for real. I don't know. Game development, this is a fucking mess. Grant writes in and says, when did we start referring to console generations as 4th, 5th, 6th gen, etc.? I never heard of this until like a decade ago, and now it has become a commonplace thing. I constantly hear from YouTubers mainly. Yeah, I fucking hate it, man. The numbering of generations is such a corny, dumb thing. Because it's such an ambiguous, like, where are your cutoffs? You know, where's something like the Dreamcast fit because it released in the middle? No, these are terrible monikers. What do we call? I mean, so yeah, like this Wikipedia definitely is part of that. Like they have built some clear delineation for consoles and tried to put them into separate generations. See, the Chrononaut says Dreamcast is the same generation as PS2 and Xbox. Pretty straightforward. I don't know. I would say that makes it the worst console of that generation. Whereas if you look at it as when it came out, it was better than the PlayStation 1. It is a half step between those two things. It is not a direct, clean part of either one of those. It came out somewhere in the middle. It did not sit as like the... It was not the hallmark, the start of a new generation. So if you really want to get frustrated with the generation counting, and every time this comes up, I say the same thing. We have this numbering, which, yeah, this numbering is all over Wikipedia. It's dreadful. It's fucking abysmal. These 9th generation consoles are, you know, like, shut the fuck up. Even worse is when an EA probably still does this in their earnings calls. I don't know. EA counted the generations by the start of the PlayStation. And so right now they would be talking about these current machines as Gen 5 consoles. Like, oh yeah, in the transition to Gen 5 consoles, you know, we're seeing this uptick in sales here, and Gen 4 consoles still comprise X% of our revenue. And so they started the generations at the PlayStation, which, you know, I think, look, it's bad for the same reasons, right? It is super bad for the exact same reason that numbering these things at all is bad. But it's something they can use, and again, it's not something they really use in a public-facing way all that often. It is something that is, by and large, used in their earnings calls, where people kind of understand what they're getting at and go like, okay, yeah. And they only really have to use it in context of just like, again, in those transitional years between generations, they go like, oh yeah, we're spending X number of dollars on development for our Gen 5 launches, and, you know, we're straddling the line with multi-platform, cross-generational releases between Gen 4 and Gen 5, and EA did that, and there were a couple of other companies that I want to say picked it up, but didn't stick with it. So it was mostly just EA. And that stuff was always frustrating. That said, I think, you know, you could make an argument that, like, if you look at what we're doing right now as the modern video game industry, I think that modern video game industry started with the launch of the PlayStation and the Saturn. You know, that full transition from 2D to 3D. You could make the case, right? About like, oh, we, you know, yeah, there's classic numbering and modern numbering, and we're on Gen 5. Like, yeah, sure. Like I think that transition point into the launch of the Saturn and the PlayStation is so major when you look at where we are now. When you look at where we are now and the games that are coming out now, you can trace that back to the roots of the original PlayStation in some cases. You can't go too much further back than that because, the polygons, they are the polygons. And I don't know. It's a bad numbering scheme either way, but it's always just frustrating when it comes up. Adam from Philly writes in and says, this is more hip hop talk. How do you feel about the Beastie Boys? Personally, they were the first hip hop group that had me listening to full albums, and their features, production, sample, references, etc. really broke me into the genre. Yeah. Yes, I mean, for me, I spent a lot of time as a young kid listening to a lot of breakdancing tapes, a lot of like K-Tel breakdancing compilations with, early 80s tracks and stuff like that. But really, it was MTV, and the Beastie Boys were a very MTV friendly group. Run DMC was as well, of course. And so for me, it was the release of License to Ill and the release of Raising Hell by Run DMC were kind of a big moment there for the culture. And yeah, I really liked Paul's Boutique when it came out. I know it was weirdly divisive at the time. It did not sell super well, but I don't know. I thought that album was fucking amazing then when I was like a freshman in high school or whatever. And following that, have you ever heard of Northern State? They were an all-woman trio of rappers, Hesta Prynne, Sprout, and Guinea Love from Long Island, that reproduced the archetypal Beastie Boys rap style, shouting boastful party time lyrics and spitting verses by alternating lines or couplets between group members. I specifically remember Questlove himself going on the Roots message board and giving them a strong cosign, since they were a big departure from what was hot in rap at the time, but the music snob posters were not having it. And they were right, they weren't good, but it's interesting to see a somewhat late period, entirely failed white rapper project before the concept started becoming less awkward and artificial. I don't think, Adam from Philly, I don't think I agree with your take on Northern State. I think the Northern State, they had what, like 3 albums, 4 albums, whatever it was. I thought that Northern State had some really fucking good shit early on. I think as they kind of branched out stylistically, they became a little bit less interesting. The last album was, Hey, Can I Have This Pin, or whatever it was called. Not a, when they were when they had Harmar Superstar as a feature, I was like, this is not what I'm looking for. But no, but very, very much they were doing a Beastie Boys style of shtick. I mean, Hesta Prynne was really playing the ad rock role really well. And Guinea Love, she changed her name at some point. I forget what she changed it to, but she had the MCA kind of gruff voice. And Sprout was the DJ. Sprout didn't really have, I don't know that I would necessarily directly compare Sprout to a Mike D. But the other two are so directly comparable that Sprout is probably forced into the Mike D role. Hesta Prynne would go on to have something of a solo career, put out some songs, some good stuff. Hesta Prynne and I follow each other on Twitter. And yeah, she has done some DJ stuff, and I don't know what she's up to these days. I think she's hosting a radio show. I don't know where she's hosting it, if it's on the radio or whatever it is. But yes, Northern State put out some really good shit. I don't agree that they were terrible. I thought they were pretty good. Were they a big departure from what was hot in rap at the time, as you said? Yes, absolutely. But yeah, they had some solid material. This Rockbuster in chat is asking the question that needs to be answered, and that is, where in the world is Amanda Blank? Man, that's a great question. We're gonna go out on that. because I didn't realize what time it was. Yeah, Amanda Blank had that track with Spank Rock on the fucking Battlefield Hardline soundtrack. And a couple of other things here and there. Her solo record is fucking fantastic. And there was not another one after it. She's done some stuff here and there. And yeah. Man. I wish Plastic Little was still together. While we're on the topic. Anyway, that's going to do it. Hey, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Again, we talked a lot about PlayStation VR2, but if you want to read something about it, that's up on Patreon. Everyone can see that. You don't need to have put any money in to read it. You can go over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann to read up on the PlayStation VR2. And of course, if you do sign up for the Patreon while you're there, you can get access to Game Boys to Men, which is our fascinating look back at how this industry ran itself back in the 90s. And like I said, the next episode of that will be about the PC. There's a new episode of the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame there as well. Get ad-free version of the podcast, so on and so forth. Have a great Tuesday. Should be back tomorrow. I don't know, I still have not figured out a great way to stream PlayStation VR stuff, but I was going to say maybe we'll cobble some of that together, but honestly, I just want to play some AKR, and I have still yet to play Wild Hearts. So we've got something of a backlog forming. So we'll see what direction we go in there. But yeah, should be back tomorrow with some more of that stuff. And then, we'll hang out on Friday and do whatever. So have a good rest of your week if you're only into the podcast. Be back next Tuesday with another one of those. Take care of yourselves. And I forgot to push this button, so I'll push it now. Yeah. Have a good one, everybody. And I'll see you soon. All right, everybody. I'm going to go for real now. Have a good one. I'm looking to see what's going on the internet. If there's anything. Oh, yeah. Look at that. All right. Yeah.